Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order our first hearing of the evening. This is a 7:30 application of Douglas Baker. The application is dated October 2nd, 2015. Mr. Baker resides at 6 Warner Road in Milton. The property is in a Residence C district. Mr. Baker is seeking a variance in order to build a 4-foot by 15-foot by 1-story addition to the right side of his existing two-family residence. And the addition is proposed to be set back 10 feet from the right side property line rather than the 20 feet which are required by Section 6C3 of the bylaw. My name is John Leonard. I'm Chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me this evening to my immediate right is Board Member Jeffrey Mullen, and to my immediate left is Board Member Ted Daber. The rules of the board are such that we'll first hear from the applicant, and I understand the applicant has counsel present this evening. We'll hear from any persons who have questions of the applicant or the applicant's attorney. We'll then hear from any people who wish to speak in support of the application or wish to speak in opposition to the present application. The proceedings are being tape recorded this evening, which is going to be the official record of the hearing and not the television transmission. So that would ask, this is a fairly large room, the acoustics are poor in this room, so that would ask that anyone who's going to speak do two things. Number one, tell us your name and address before you speak. And secondly, speak up nice and clear and loud so we'll have an accurate record if we have to revert to the record for the purposes of writing a decision. I'll summarize the advertisement for the hearing. We'll have as evidence for this hearing, at least from the outset of the hearing, the application, which is dated October 2nd, 2015. It's signed by Mr. Baker. We have a denial letter from Joseph Prondek, a building inspector. It's dated September 25, 2015. Mr. Baker has filed a plot plan of the subject property by Michael Paul Antonino. It's we have, I think, a couple of plot plans here. This one is dated November 10th, 2013, but I thought I saw somewhere in the papers a more recent plot plan. I think this may be it. It does. It shows the 10-foot deviation. It shows the property, the garage, and the relationship of the various amenities on the house to Warner Road and Webster Road. The applicant has also provided us with some plans by registered architect Joseph Genduso. They're dated August 27, 2015, and they show the project from the rear, from the first floor plan, a right side elevation, and a front elevation. So we thank the applicant for submitting all of those materials. We did receive some correspondence from neighbors. We have a full schedule tonight. I'm not going to take the time of reading all of these particular letters, but I will, for the sake of the audience members who have not been able to come to the Board of Appeals office in the afternoon to read the documents, I'll try to summarize them as fairly as I can. The first document is an email from Michael Vahey, V-H-A-Y. Vay. Thanks, Mr. Mullen. Dated October 18th, 2015, and he writes to the board that he understands the applicant has reapplied for a variance. He appreciates the variance being scaled back in size from the one that was previously filed in 2014, which I think essentially was seeking a larger variance on the right side. He submits his earlier letter. Mr. Vay suggests that the reduction in the proposed addition results in nullification and substantial derogation of the bylaw. And while it's better than the applicant's prior application, all of the factors regarding variances have not changed and have not been met. And he encloses the email that he filed in opposition to the earlier variance application, citing the various sections of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 10, and the statutory requirements. And Mr. Vay suggests that None of those statutory requirements are met in this application. Miguel Rodriguez sent an email to us. It's dated October 26, 2015. And Mr. Rodriguez lives at 54 Webster Road, just around the corner from the subject premises. Mr. Rodriguez is unable to attend the board's meeting this evening, but he wants his email made part of the record. He strongly believes that the addition of 10 feet will add undue burden to the abutters at 80 Webster Road. He believes that the addition will partially block their visibility as it nears the sidewalk, and it doesn't conform to the bylaw. He says there's plenty of space for the addition towards the back side of the house, so expanding towards the side is not warranted. He suggests that the setback requirements of the bylaw are necessary to provide light, air, and a modicum of privacy to neighboring properties, and the applicant's proposal doesn't respect those interests. He says that the statutory factors of General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10 are strict, and that variances should be sparingly exercised. And he suggests this is not a case where the variance should be granted. And we finally received an email from Maureen Brown. It's dated October 27, 2015. Ms. Brown suggests that she's a distant neighbor from the subject property, that Mr. Baker came to her house asking for her signature on the application, which must have been some type of a petition assenting to the variance. She signed it, but she says that on subsequent reflection, she believes that her signature should be ignored, which I think she's withdrawing her signatures on the assent form, and she just wants to be listed as a disinterested party who is not in support of Mr. Baker's application, and she appreciates our taking this up at the public hearing because she's not able to be here. So we thank all of the neighbors for their input, and I understand, is Mr. Brown here, or an attorney representing Mr. Brown present?
Baker is the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry, I said Mr. Baker, but I mean Mr. Brown. Excuse me, I mean Mr. Baker. Sure. Okay, the direct abutters. Okay, great. Is the applicant here, please? Oh, great. Well, come on up here, if you would. You're Mr. Baker?
Right.
And,
I'm Joe Ginduso, the architect.
oh, great. Well, welcome to the Board of Appeals, Mr. Genduso.
Back.
I think you've been here before.
Yes, I have.
Good. Welcome back. And Mr. Brown, you've been here before as well. We welcome you back as well.
I'm the one going for the variance.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I get Brown and
And
Baker.
I don't have counsel. I'm here with my architect and neighbors.
Okay, great. Well, is Mr. Genduso going to make the presentation?
Mr. Baker will explain
Okay.
why he wants the addition. I'm here to answer any questions
Great.
in terms of,
Mr. Baker, the floor is yours.
I'm just looking to expand out the right rear side of my house, very small, 4 by 15 feet. Doesn't seem like a lot, could even seem, absurdly small, but it actually gives you a much more usable room. My kids are in high school now, and we're looking for more space. And that's what's gonna give you the depth that I'm looking for, as opposed to any other direction. So that's pretty much it. I did go and talk to a lot of neighbors. I showed them the plan that the architect drew, and I asked them, they didn't oppose the bigger one previously, but I just, learned from that experience, and I sought more active support of it. So I acquired a great deal of signatures that I have here, and I brought the person who's directly opposed to it, who's going to look at it across the street, not opposed to the project, but.
But the most affected by the project.
Correct. And when you cited Rodriguez in that opening statement there, if you call it that, 10 feet they had said, so I don't think they had the plan, or they were mischaracterizing what I intended to do. So most of my neighbors understand that, you know, multifamilies, you can keep them owner occupied, it's a good idea. It's good overall for a neighborhood. You know, I'm just trying to make more space for my growing family.
The reasons why we decided to expand in this direction were to create an addition that created a square-shaped room, which is obviously much more usable, much more practical. Also, expansion in this direction does not directly affect the adjacent tenant, and it will not require major removal of stairs and decks. And if, in fact, we did expand towards the rear, which was a consideration, we end up with a room that's rather long and narrow and not as usable as the shape we have here.
You have the approximate dimensions of that room if you...
The room right now is approximately 16 by 15 feet, approximately, so it's almost a square. Whereas if we were to expand in the other direction, we're probably looking at 11 by whatever, however farther we go out, could be 11 by 15, 11 by 20. It's just a little odd-shaped room.
It still requires a variance as well.
That would require a variance if we continued along the sidewall and not jogged in an additional 6 feet to get that 20-foot variance. I also noticed, and maybe I'm a little out of my realm here, that the Webster Road becomes a driveway past the applicant's property and down towards number 80 Webster. So as far as traffic goes, I don't see much traffic more than Mr. Baker's and the owners of 80 Webster Road. And if in fact, stretching it a bit, if that could be considered a driveway, then the 10-foot setback could be in keeping with what might be, in terms of the mechanics of it, a side yard setback. So those are my observations. I'm here to clarify any issues that
Do you have
come up.
any comments on the statutory factors as to whether they're met here? Or?
I don't, no.
Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Mr. David, do you have any questions of Mr. Baker or Mr. Genduso?
Yeah, you can present that to them.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Just, do you want to present the
signatures.
I
petition?
give you the signatures.
That's great.
and-
How many signatures do you have there, Mr. Baker?
So this is a picture of the house. I mean, it goes towards woods,
Right.
all right? So, and the road's private. It's private from here.
Okay, the only thing you got to be careful
Okay,
of, you bring the microphone over here, because they won't be able to pick you up. No, the one right here, sir. Yeah, they won't be able to pick you up on the TV line, and they get mad at us when we have private conversations.
So, anyway, I didn't know if it mattered, but they did say at the building department, because I thought it was private, and it in fact is. This is public, and then it turns private. My property's here. So what I did was I photocopied this, and I took it around the neighborhood with the plan that the architect drew.
Okay, great.
And so this is my house here, and then it continues, then this, so this is my house here. So they've signed all the way down this side of the park. And some people were home, and I didn't know where the mailing ended, and I just took it around if people were home. And
Okay, so you had them sign on the replication of their dwelling?
yeah, so it
okay,
would make
great.
sense to you, because
Okay.
Mr. Vey, who opposed, he's like way over here. I live here.
Okay.
And my neighbor's here, who's directly would be looking at it, say, so to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. David, do you have any questions of Mr.
Do you
Baker?
want- I'll try.
Sure. Yeah, why don't we take this? No, you stay right there. Right, Ted.
I really don't have too many, so I guess that no sketches were ever done or any plans showing what an addition to the back of the house.
None were presented to the,
Okay. Well, or done, or even done in preparation
well, there
for
was
it. Just a-
discussion, and there was my yellow tray scribbles that showed a possible expansion in the back. And it netted a space that just wasn't satisfactory in terms of furnishings and all of that.
Okay.
And it also disturbed some of the structure that's there. So it was decided this created the least amount of impact with the maximum, effect.
I don't have any more questions
Mr. Mullin.
right now.
So how long have you owned the house?
20 years. I grew up in Milton, so I've been here most of my life.
And do you have a tenant on the other side?
I do.
And,
At 4.
I'm sorry?
At 4 Warner Road.
Right.
I mean, that makes it better for anybody at 4 if I'm not out the back, which isn't necessarily why I didn't go out the back because, as we said, it's just not the layout that I was looking for. It's better depth going this way rather than Hollish, and still would require it, but yes.
And you said that if you did go out the back, you'd still need a variance because you still don't meet the side lot line requirement on the non-conformity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to indent that addition so that it goes into the kitchen.
I'd be here anyway, and it'd be...
Redo.
it-
Well, unless you satisfied the setback by moving it in and then having the addition adjacent to the family room in the kitchen, we'd have to remove the deck.
Right. And
Then you get into a lot of costs, that's what you're saying.
Well, and it also would create a hook-shaped type space because of that indentation.
Right. And if you did do the addition, is the building clapboard now?
Do you have any photos of it?
You gave us a photo, but John put it away. He doesn't like us to see all the evidence.
Great, thank you.
So it would look like the building. It would
Oh, yeah.
be seamless. You'd
Yeah.
paint it the same color, and it would the roof would match. And
Oh, the intent with that, it would be part of the original
so it'd look
design.
as if
Yeah.
it was original.
The hip
Okay.
roof.
Oh, there you
Same
go.
windows,
Yeah.
that kind of
That's
thing.
terrific. Oh, it's shingled.
Yep. So we'd weave the corners like they are there, and so it blends in.
I see. Okay, thank you. But there's nothing particular about this lot, though, that's driving this, this addition. And by that, when I make that question, I'm referring to the statutory standard to which John referred in granting variances about soil conditions, shape, topography of the land. We didn't hear anything about that, and I don't see anything, but I'd like to ask you whether or not there's anything particular about the soil conditions, the shape, and topography of the land that would indicate that the variance should be granted. Anything like that?
The only thing I can say about that in terms of grades is that the grade along the side is much closer to the first floor
Yeah.
than the grade along the back. It really slopes off rather
see that.
sharply on the back, which would cause some additional foundation work and
And on the, thank you, and on the hardship issues, it's really about accommodating your family,
Well, that and the associated cost with doing something else.
doing something else. And the family is, tell us about your family.
It's wife and 2 kids, 9th grade, 10th grade, Milton High School, so they're getting big.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions of the applicant and Mr. Jindu. So is there anybody present this evening who wishes to speak in support of this application or has questions of?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Should we go with the
Tell-
support, or?
Well,
I don't know.
no, let's do the questions first, and then we'll do who comes to speak in support or in opposition. Why don't you identify yourself, sir?
Good evening. My name is Michael Chinman. I represent the Brown family, who are the direct abutters to the rear.
Okay. Mr. Shinman, why don't you come up here and just state your name and address again so it's picked up by the television. And would spell your last name if you would, please, and you can ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Chinman. I'm a lawyer. I live at 433 Elliott Street in Milton. I represent the Brown family, who are the direct abutters to the rear of
Good.
the applicant's
Welcome
property.
to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. My question is, what is the intended use of the roughly square room that will be created?
it's where the family's doing most of their living. It's the living room.
It's been characterized by the applicant as a TV room. Is that
If they watch TV in their living room, that's up to them, I would think.
and what's its current use?
Living space.
Similar living room?
Similar living room, right.
Okay. Thank you. I have no
Okay.
further questions.
Is there anybody else who has any questions of the applicant? Okay, the record indicates there's no such person present, so let's deal with those people, if any, who wish to speak in support of this application. Yes, ma'am. Why don't you come on up here and tell us your name and address, please.
My name is Sarah Kate Filoni. I live at 5 Warner Road. Oh, sure.
And would you spell your last name, please?
Feloney.
And your address?
5 Warner Road.
5.
Directly across the street.
Good. Welcome to the Board of Appeals. We're
Thank you.
delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. And I'm in support for Doug. Yeah, I'll be looking at it every day. He keeps his property meticulous. I have no objection.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
Anybody have any questions of Ms. Filoni? No. Thank you for
Oh,
coming.
thank you.
Yes. Anybody else who would like to speak in support of this variance application? Okay, the record indicates there's no such person present. Is there anybody present who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for variance? Counselor, come on back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I sit here?
Yes, absolutely.
Again, my name is Michael Chim, and I represent the Brown family who live at 80 Webster Road. I have a few things I'd like to pass up. This is just a diagram showing the plot plan. You can see the,
Why don't you explain what it is, and then we'll deal with it.
it shows the lots there. The applicant's, he has a double lot. Both lots are outlined in color. And then directly behind that double lot is the 80 Webster Road property where the Browns live.
Okay.
This is a photograph from the end of the Browns driveway, looking up Webster Road towards the applicant's residence. And I may make reference to that more than once. I'm going to call that the blue minivan picture. There's a blue minivan that the applicant parks on the grass next to his house, which is where the addition will be going, on that side of the house. Now,
Mr. Brown, do you want to take a peek at this?
Baker.
Mr. Chairman, why don't you just shoot that down to Mr. Brown? What's that?
Baker.
Mr. Baker, so that he has it. I've got Brown in my head, I'll never get rid of it.
now, if you didn't know anything about the
Additions
lot
on the
lines and
other
you went to
side, yeah.
visit this area, I think the thought might naturally be that the line of trees, and there's a retaining wall. This shows the retaining wall better. The blue minivan picture also shows the line of trees and the retaining wall. The natural thought might be that that is the property line. Here's another picture that shows the Browns' house, a thin strip of land, and then the line of trees, retaining wall. That is not the property line. The property line is the driveway of the Browns' house. So it's considerably closer to the Browns' house. Now, the history here is that in 2014, Mr. Baker applied for a variance. The board didn't act on that. Mr. Baker, as I understood it, I wasn't here, but as I understand it, the board urged Mr. Baker to speak to his neighbors and try to come up with a solution, and he withdrew. He was allowed to withdraw the variance without it being denied or approved. And the Browns did oppose that variance at that time. After that variance hearing, Mr. Baker responded by putting this in the driveway, right? That shows you the property line. I'm not saying that's not his property, but he installed that concrete beam with some metal sticking up from it. And I believe Mr. Baker would acknowledge that he put that in because the Browns had opposed his request for a variance. So the history here where the board urged Mr. Baker to try to get cooperation and assent from his neighbors, the bottom line is that has not occurred. There may be some logical ways to resolve this, but it hasn't happened. There is no approval or assent from the neighbors. there is, I think it's fair to say, a fairly hostile response from Mr. Baker to the neighbors asserting their rights to oppose the variance. Now, the new variance, it's a different scale, it's true. It's a shorter extension. And it's been characterized as a one-story addition. It's important to realize that from the rear, and I know you have the plans that show the different elevations, it's almost a full two-story addition from the rear because of the slope of the land there. So from the Browns' perspective, they're not looking at a one-story addition, they're looking at a almost full two-story addition. And it'll be an addition that brings the house, the structure, closer to Webster Road. And it's already a non-conforming use because it doesn't meet the setback requirements already the way it exists. This is exacerbating the nonconformity by going even closer to Webster Road. And it's important to emphasize Webster Road is the sole access way to the Browns property at 80 Webster Road. So this addition will be interfering with the visual lines, the light available to 80 Webster Road. And going back to the blue minivan picture,
Yes, it's up at the end of the table.
I mean, that'll give you a perspective of, if you picture the addition coming off of the house, it'll isolate the Browns' property and make it even seem like it's an appendage to the Baker property, which it's clearly not. That's not a driveway, Webster Road, as it's been alluded to here. That is clearly a roadway, Webster Road. And as I said, it's the sole access way.
Is it a private way as opposed to a
That part of
public
Webster
way?
Road is a private way. But that sole access, not only will it cut off lines of vision and light and space, but already when the snow gathers and Webster Road is plowed, there's difficulty about where the snow goes. When this addition, if it's allowed to be put on, that brings the house even closer to Webster Road, that cuts down even more on the space available for snow to be placed, which is a problem exacerbated because Mr. Baker already removed snow from his property onto Webster Road. So this addition is going to cut them off. It'll exacerbate access to the Browns' property at 80 Webster. And I fully join in the email that you read, Mr. Chairman, from Mr. Vey, where he makes the points that there is nothing that affects this lot that does not generally affect that zoning district. This is not the only lot which has sloping land. There's dozens there with that same sloping hill. So there's nothing that has been presented to you that the lot conditions or topography or shape are specific to this lot and do not generally affect the zoning district. This is a preference, not a requirement that the applicant has to build sideways. And the purpose is not a compelling, pressing one for his family with 2 children. It's to create a TV room, a square TV viewing room. I don't think that's a compelling need. It's not a hardship, and it's especially not a hardship where they do have a double lot. They could expand to the rear, and even without the indent, they could expand to the rear and maintain the existing nonconformity without exacerbating the existing nonconformity. They could go on the same line that the structure now occupies to the rear, if desired. but they don't desire that, and desire is not a reason for a variance. It's a preference, not a need. No hardship has been shown. I would urge the board to deny this variance.
Great. Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Mr. David, do you have any questions of Attorney Schumer?
No, one question, which I think you neglected to do. Could you spell your last name, please?
I'm sorry, Chinman, Chin Man.
That wasn't too difficult. Mr. Mullen, do you have any questions?
Are you putting in a basement?
No, basement's there. This is going out the side.
No, I know, but
there is-
what's the foundation of the addition? It looks like a poured concrete foundation.
Yeah, yeah, so there'd be only like,
It'd be a shallow foundation, no basement,
But the windows, there's windows there. There's windows in the
to
basement.
ventilate the crawl space.
Just the ventilation?
yeah, well,
So it's not, you're not expanding the
Am I
basement?
wrong? Maybe clarify.
no, I was hoping to do a basement,
Oh, you
New
do?
England,
Oh,
keep it warm.
That's all I
I
asked.
thought that was better, I started to rethink.
I don't know whether it's
sorry,
better or not, I
I'm
just want to know if
mistaken.
there's a basement.
Yeah.
A lot of times an addition like this will be,
Just on
will not have
piers.
a basement, so you
Right.
have lattice or something, and the reason I ask is because of the slope, there will be a fair bit of the concrete will be exposed from the rear elevation.
We could bring the clapboard down to cover that if that's an issue.
No, it's not a design detail, I mean, that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to get a full understanding of what the view would be from the rear, consistent with the,
It
with
would
the
be, it would
testimony.
be similar to what's from the side.
yeah, understood,
And-
understood.
And, you know,
It's an expansion of the basement and the first floor.
yeah, it by no means would look 2 stories. It's
Yeah,
not.
no, I didn't suggest
Yeah.
it would, I just
Yeah.
want to get an idea. On the double lot, is it truly a double lot? You use it all as one property, you own both lots, same name, one tax bill?
I get one tax bill.
Do you know if there was ever a structure on that second lot?
I don't know.
Is the garage,
I doubt it.
does the garage look like your house? Same kind of clapboard, same color?
Yeah,
I might have a,
Doesn't look out of place at all?
no.
Okay. It's a big lot. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Let's see if there's anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition to this application for variance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming tonight. The record indicates there's no such person present. Mr. Baker, do you want to sum up, or do you have any comments before we decide your application?
Well, he was going through his thing, beyond the retaining wall, I do own, it's not a thin strip. It's 10 feet, some places, it's substantial. And, you know, it's my property, I pay the taxes on it. And when I did and I didn't put that concrete there after the last variance, I did it in the springtime, because I had gone to broach this subject with various people before it got to this. And come to find out that the Browns were going around the back to secretly oppose it. I mean, Cunningham Park in particular, which they didn't, they finally, but they wouldn't even hear me out, and I'm thrilled that they're not here in opposition, okay? Maybe I was able to present my side, which they had never heard before, but it wasn't easy to do. So I kind of took issue with that. And there's a nail there. And I put that marker, you know, in on my property in both directions, at least 3 inches probably. But the stake on the other corner, you know, disappeared not long after it went in. And so that's kind of a problem. I don't want the nail to disappear as well. You pay a lot of money for these things, and, you know, it's to know where the boundary is. You know, I don't have the money to do what I would like to do, you know, today, you know, which is, when that wall goes, it would be, you know, a nice retaining wall. But, you know, they're not cheap, and so it gets put on hold. So maybe that addresses that the lawyer brought up. And it's clearly not a 2-story. I don't know how you could see it as a 2-story.
I think he's just saying
And-
because of
and
the
as far
smoke,
as
it makes it appear to be a two-story.
Throwing
even though
snow on the
technically it
street, that's ludicrous. As far as, it's a very difficult road. You know, the town has equipment there all the time getting stuck. I don't try and hinder that. I know the guys that come by to do it. I've pulled them out myself with my own truck. You know, so that's just nonsense. I don't know about light and visual. I don't know how 4 feet, it doesn't seem like that much to me. That's pretty much all I have
Okay,
to say.
great. Well, thank you for summing up, and thank you for coming tonight, as Mr. Genduso. As we did at the last hearing, we're obliged to discuss your application in open session and to vote on it. So we intend to do that here and now. So, Mr. Daber, do you want to be heard?
Sure do. This is a tough one for me. It's a relatively, modest in terms of, the width of the extension, the 4 feet. On the other hand, it does increase a previously existing, I guess it's a 6-foot nonconformity, right? And make it a 10-foot nonconformity. So it's, the setback there would only be half the distance that it's supposed to be. And I have trouble with the statutory factors. And I frankly would like to hear what my colleagues here have to say about it in discussion before I...
Mr. Mullins, do you want to be heard? Thanks, Ted.
So in a lot of, many cases over many years, we've granted variances from the setback provisions where the proposed structure would be attractive, would be otherwise consistent with nearby dwellings in the neighborhood and had neighborhood support. And that's been the position taken by this board for many years. But in this application has some neighborhood support, but it doesn't have all neighborhood support. And in the absence of meeting the statutory standard, or even coming, in my opinion, close to the statutory standard, I really can't support the variance, despite the fact that I agree with Ted that it's modest and it may be attractive, but that's not our job. Our job is to enforce the law, and I don't think the 48 Section 10 requirements are met, given the fact that there's really nothing peculiar about here. It appears that there's other ways to enlarge the property. I don't think a hardship's been established. So I can't support the variance. That's where I am.
Okay. My view is very similar to Mr. Mullen, in that many times in Milton's a tight neighborhood, a lot of small lots, and so many times we're lenient in enforcing the statutory requirements if there is assent by all of the neighbors, and particularly if the opposition is due to invidious reasons, not in good faith. I can't make that finding here. I think there's no conformity with the statutory requirements for a variance. And I think, while I understand why it would be helpful to you, I think we may actually be doing you a disservice if we granted a variance, because you would find yourself in the Superior Court or the Land Court. There's a 21-day appeal period on the 20-day appeal period. On the 21st day, you'd be in the Superior Court with the neighbors suing you. You'd spend a fortune, in my view, and I think you'd have absolutely no chance whatsoever to hold a variance. So you're going to cost yourself a lot of money in legal fees. You're going to cost the town money in legal fees. You're going to cost the neighbors money in legal fees. Because as a matter of law, the Supreme Judicial Court, if you read the cases where they review variances, the court is extremely strict in requiring strict conformity with the variance statute in order to uphold a variance. and they're very quick to reverse variances that are on fuzzy grounds or whatever. So I honestly think, just like in the last hearing, that you, even if we wanted to give you the variance, and I guess we'd love to be able to help you out, legally we can't do it. We're sworn to uphold the law. So I don't think you've met your burden or come close to meeting your burden, even though you've presented a very good in a good faith application to try to get the variance, and you certainly ran around to get a lot of signatures from neighbors, which is very helpful. Regretfully, some of the neighbors who did object in email form, particularly one who's not able to be present tonight, is an attorney. Okay? And the Browns hired their own attorney to appear, who basically set forth the standards. So I don't think you meet the requirements for a variance, and I don't think I could vote for your variance as a matter of law, even if I have sympathy for you. But that having been said, something that Mr. Shinman said I thought was important, and I think he said it in good faith, is he indicated that there are ways to deal with issues like this. Mr. Genduso, who's been here before, he's a terrific architect. He may be able to meet with the neighbors and may be able to make several suggestions as to different alternatives that may not be perfect for you, but can get you the additional room that that would benefit your family. There are mediators out there who do this type of work. I think, from what I heard, that there are ways to get this done. I don't know, because I'm not a builder, I'm not an architect, but I think that some good faith and thoughtful communication with the neighbors, particularly the neighbors who are objecting here, would go a long way towards getting a solution to your housing issue. I know it's easy to say, well, we deny the variance, but if you don't like the neighborhood, you don't like your neighbors, you should move. But that's not realistic, and it's not fair, because you've got a beautiful house, and to try to replicate that house somewhere else in Milton, or buy a house similar to that, with this economy, with housing prices going to the sky, it's not easy for families, and like yourself, to do that. You're not a multimillionaire. I wish you were. I hope we all were. But so I think there are practical solutions here. If there's good faith negotiations with the neighbors, and particularly Mr. Shinman, many times owners get personally involved, and they get personally involved, and it just kind of makes the situation worse. So many times, if you are conducting negotiations through people who have the skills of Mr. Genduso, or some mediators, or if you have legal counsel who can work with Mr. Shinman, there may be a result out there for you that's doable. But as I say, it may not be perfect, but it may be doable, and you're trying to get more space for your family, and that's admirable. So I think the consensus of the board is that we're not going to grant this variance. We can certainly hear from Mr. Daber if he's reconsidered. And the issue is a technical issue, since you're not represented by counsel here. If, in my view, and Mr. Mullen will be the first to correct me, that if we vote this variance down, then you can't reapply for a variance. I believe it's 3 years. Is that right, Jeffrey? That's my memory. You couldn't reapply for 3 years. And that may be a substantial imposition on you and your family, particularly if there is a solution that can be worked out between the parties. So you have the opportunity here, as you did last time when you ran into similar opposition, to ask the board to withdraw, to allow you to withdraw your application without prejudice, which means you can come back and refile it.
I'd like to do that.
And I think that's really in your best interest here. And I think if you get counsel or have Mr. Genduso talk to Mr. Shinman, or work a dynamic where people are working towards the common goal. I think you may be able to come before us. You've got a lot of assents to the variance, come before us with an assented to variance, and then we can apply a different standard because there's no likelihood of an appeal. And in court proceedings against the town of Milton, which are expensive. So we have a motion by Mr. Baker to withdraw his application without prejudice. Does any board member want to be heard on this? Any member of the public want to be heard? Okay. Nobody wants to be heard. So all those in favor of allowing Mr. Baker's application to withdraw this application with prejudice, without prejudice, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Baker, there we are. So good luck to you. I hope you work with the neighbors. I think, sure. You want your photographs back? Or, well, take this, certainly take this back. And these, you have one photograph, I think, here.
Is that yours or?
Oh, that's yours as well. Mr. Shinman, maybe you can be of some help to everyone here by maybe suggesting some alternatives or keeping the process moving towards some constructive result. I'd appreciate that very much. And thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. Okay, so we're finished our first hearing. Give us about 2 or 3 minutes and we'll be on to our second hearing.
Yeah? Wait, nothing to do tonight? Let's go on.
I'm really going to say, I felt sorry for the guy. He doesn't help himself.
Yeah, rough
I
justice.
I kind of felt the same way, but it did kind of feel like it. 4 feet really isn't that, but, and also, on the other side of that driveway is the park.
Are we on? Are we
Yeah,
live?
no, it may be live.
Yeah.
It's-
Well,
Yeah, I know it's the park, yeah. Cunningham, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, one other thing is. I'm okay with it.
No, well,
definitely would.
he can do whatever he wants. Okay, what's this one? Theaters. Oh, my God.
Been reading that, Ted?
My wife had surgery.
How you doing? Good.
My wife had surgery with the orthopedic surgeon. Yeah, she's fine. She's fine.
No cookies?
Hi, Frank, how are you?
I'm doing very well, yes.
You're going to be presenting the
Yes, I
case? Oh, great. Oh, Mr. Prondak, how are you, sir? Mr. DeLuna, it's been about a century since we've seen you last.
Okay.
Not quite that long.
No, not quite. All set, Joe? Mary, Kit?
Yes.
Everyone ready to go? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order our second hearing of the evening. This is the 7:45 hearing. It's about 8:20 in the evening. And this is the application of Thayer Nursery at 270 Hillside Street in Milton, appealing a decision of the building commissioner dated September 22nd, 2015, in which the building inspector, who's with us tonight, Mr. Joseph Prondak, determined that the applicant could only sell products at retail on the site, which are directly and incidental to the permitted nursery uses at 270 Hillside Street, and that in particular articles of art, clothing, ceramics, jewelry, housewares, candles, soap, and carvings are not allowed to be sold at retail at their nursery during holiday fairs or similar events during Thanksgiving and Christmas time seasons. It's my understanding, but Mr. DeLuna can help us with this, that I believe the applicant is seeking basically a special permit in order to conduct a holiday festival on a specific date. December 6th seems to stick in my mind, but I may be wrong, between certain hours like 10 to 4 in the afternoon, as they have done apparently in the past. So my name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me this evening, to my immediate left is board member Ted Daber, and to my immediate right is board member Jeffrey Mullen. The rules are going to be the same as at the first hearing. We'll hear from the applicant or the applicant's counsel. Then we'll hear from persons who have questions of the applicant or applicant's counsel, and then hear from persons who wish to speak in support of this appeal from Mr. Prondak's letter, which I suspect is seeking some type of an amendment to the existing special permit, whether it's on a single basis or on an annual basis. And looking at Ms. Oldfield's letter to the town, the event is the 12th Annual Holiday Boutique, which is scheduled on Sunday, December 5, not the 6th, December 5, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the evening. As I mentioned, we're tape recording the proceedings as usual, even though the matter is being televised, apparently in several dimensions. The accurate and official record of the transaction of this hearing is the tape. So we have summarized the advertisement. We have the application and the appeal from Mr. Prondak's ruling. We have Ms. Oldfield's email to the town administrator, Anne Marie Fagan, and we have just received some materials from Mr. Francis DeLuna, who represents the nursery, which Mr. DeLuna, I'm sure, will be going into some detail regarding those matters, so I won't do that for the present time. We did receive a submittal from attorney Matthew Dunn. I don't know whether you've had a chance to see that, Mr. DeLuna. I believe it was delivered at something like 4:35 or 5 o'clock this evening via email. Since I have to do some more ceremonial things here. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mullen's going to give you a copy of that letter so you can read it while we continue on with some of the
There's a couple
procedure
of exhibits, but you have
issues.
the decision and the court decision.
So we did receive two pieces of correspondence from members of the Board of Selectmen, but speaking on their individual capacities and not for the full Board of Selectmen. Normally I summarize these things as I did in the hearing for Mr. Baker, but if I start, I think I will read both Selectmen's letter just out of respect for the Board of Selectmen. We did receive certain emails from interested citizens On 10/25/2015, we received 3 emails in favor of Thayer Nursery's appeal. On the 27th of October, we received 5 emails in favor of the Thayer Nursery's position. And on the 28th of October, we received 5 emails in favor of the applicant's position and 1 email in opposition to this position. So let me deal with the selectmen's letters. The first letter is from Selectman Kathleen M. Conlon, a member of the Board of Selectmen, but as I said, writing in her individual capacity, otherwise known as Katie Conlon. She writes, "Dear members of the Board of Appeals, as you know, Thayer Nursery has appealed from a decision of the Building Commissioner, Joseph Prondak, dated September 22nd, 2015, to the effect that Thayer may not offer arts and crafts items like jewelry, ceramics, small housewares, artwork, baked goods, and the like for sale as a, quote, holiday boutique, close quote, open house to be held on Sunday, December 6, 2015. This matter will be heard by the Board of Appeals on Wednesday, October 28, 2015. I'm not able to personally attend the meeting to testify when you take comments from members of the public. Therefore, I'm submitting this letter in support of Thayer's appeal. Mr. Prondak's decision is based upon the permit to operate a nursery business that the Board of Appeals has issued to Thayer. Generally speaking, I have supported Mr. Prondak's conservative approach to interpreting Thayer's permit when determining which businesses are allowed and which uses are not allowed. However, I urge the Board of Appeals to take into account the unique nature of the one-day holiday boutique that, in my view, would support a limited exception to the permitted nursery use of Thayer's property at Hillside Street. I have heard from a number of Milton residents who support Thayer's holiday boutique and hope that it will continue from year to year. As one of the local representatives, I wish to pass along their positive comments to the Board of Appeals. Thayer has held the holiday boutique for the past 11 years, and the event has become a winter tradition that many residents of the town enjoy and look forward to attending each year. Thayer's holiday boutique builds a sense of community. It contributes to the quality of life enjoyed by Milton residents and provides young families with an inexpensive way to usher in the holiday season. I understand that the sale of homemade arts and crafts items have been an integral part of the holiday boutique over the years. The Oldfield family has put on the event to good use for charitable purposes, raising money that they have donated to the Milton Food Pantry, the Milton High School Music Department, and the American Legion Post number 114. Thayer's Holiday Boutique should be celebrated for the great Milton tradition that it has become to be. There may be some adverse impact on Thayer's abutters due to increased traffic and parking in the area, but it is unlikely that the sale of arts and crafts items at the Holiday Boutique will unduly burden abutters. Surely, any small adverse impact on the abutters on only one day of the year will be outweighed by both the benefit that the Holiday Boutique will bring to many Milton residents and the joyful holiday memories it will instill in children. I urge the Board of Appeals to grant limited relief to Thayer by amending its nursery permit as necessary to allow Thayer to sell arts, crafts, and other small retail items in connection with the holiday open house to be held on the first Sunday of December each year. Thank you for your consideration, and best regards, sincerely, Kathleen M. Conlon. So we thank Katie Conlon for her submission. We also received a letter which was attached to an email from Selectman David Burns. It was delivered via email on October 27th, 2015. And Mr. Burns writes, "Dear members of the Board of Appeals, I am writing on behalf of the appeal of Thayer Nursery, who requested and was denied a one-day permit for the purpose of offering the local community its 12th annual holiday boutique. This day is an annual occasion where Thayer Nursery hosts approximately 25 artisans who make their unique products available as well as to spend time and to cultivate community interest in local crafts of various kinds. We have few opportunities to share artisan crafts with our children, and this day provides a wonderful opportunity to do so. It also provides residents with an opportunity to support Made in America items, as well as to support the efforts of local artisans in promoting their crafts. It has been extremely well attended by residents, and it continues to be a day which residents look forward to as a seasonal tradition. While it is attended by people and families from all areas of the town, it is also enjoyed by the neighborhood homeowners. Many neighbors look forward to this upbeat event that for one day becomes a gathering place for our townspeople to share the holiday spirit and reconnect with neighbors and friends for something that is truly joyous. This is a family-oriented event that has been well attended and reasonably timed. It is an unofficial kickoff for the holidays for homeowners, families, and it's truly a festival day for all in attendance. I offer my support for the appeal of Thayer Nursery for this one-day permit, and I am hopeful that the board will permit this occasion to take place again this year. So we thank David Burns for his letter and his thoughts. So I think without further ado, Mr. Francis DeLuna is here on behalf of the appellant. So welcome back to the Board of Appeals, Mr. DeLuna. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Why don't you just introduce yourself so that...
I'm sorry, I'm Frank DeLuna from Merthyr Kalina, LLP. My office is in Woburn, Mass. And the Oldfields are with me, owners and operators of Thayer Nursery. To start, this is an option, I believe. Our initial request was to rescind or overturn the decision of the building inspector if this board feels that an amendment to the special permit is a more appropriate cure. We will make a bifurcated request for that. The situation is, for the past 11 years, and I've included in my package to you some advertisements. A holiday bazaar has been held at the Thayer Nursery. Thayer invites anywhere between 20 and 30 local artisans onto their property. All the artisans are inside the property. On the outside of the building, all the artisans are inside the buildings on the property. All right, we do have the high school choir, is it, does sing. It is not a amplified situation. They don't have music over the loudspeakers. They do have a police detail. These artisans do pay $25 apiece. That fee helps reduce the financial impact on the nursery. It is, they are required to have a table, and that $25 is in part rents the table. They are required to have a chair. That $25 goes to the rental of the chairs as well as the tablecloth. All right, this is a safety issue. You don't want vendors coming in with rickety-rackety tables and chairs and all of a sudden find that we have a tort on our hands. So by requiring everything to be rented, there is a guarantee that the equipment will be sound and, in fact, looking good. The $25 also goes to a police detail, which is there for the full time. Now,
Could you describe the police detail in a little more specificity?
I would have to ask one of the...
Is it a Milton police detail? And
We call the Milton Police Department. And if they're available to fill the detail, they do it, and if they can't, then it gets too, it
You're
gets.
Mr. Josh Oldfield, just for the
Yes,
record.
Mr. Josh Oldfield, 24 Forest Street, lifelong resident of the town, owner of the nursery. Back to the
The
police
police
detail.
detail, how many officers are there, and what do they do, and how long are they there?
Based on my discussion with the police department over the years, they feel comfortable with having one on the corner. They pick a spot, and they actually work in conjunction with our staff. They like to do that. They feel we have a good grasp of managing traffic with our experience over the past 12 years. We use a two-way radio system. Our employees count cars. We allocate approximately 6 employees to mitigate and move the traffic along as spaces become available. We take priority to handicap people and valet park their vehicles. So we have a mechanism in place to handle the parking. With regard to the vendor parking, we allocate a space. They come in a couple of hours earlier so they can set up without any conflict of running into the public as well as vendor setup. So there is a program there to handle all of that. And the vendors are not allowed to leave during the course of the event based on our parking techniques. We block them in so they don't have that ability to do that. And we pull the vehicles around to the greenhouse and load the vendors' wares into their vehicles, so it's an expeditious process.
Sorry, Mr. DeLuca.
Oh, absolutely fine.
Why don't you continue with your
Now,
presentation?
this activity actually falls under the category of agritourism. In my memorandum, I supplied a pamphlet, and I only supplied the first, I think, 6 or 7 pages of the pamphlet on agritourism, prepared by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The rest of the pamphlet was actually case studies. But you can see from the definition that the Department of Agricultural Resources puts out, you know, the concept of agritourism is conducting something on the farm that will, in fact, attract people who normally wouldn't come to the farm, onto the farm, and as a consequence, they buy things. Now, it's important to note, and I think if you take a look at the special permits and you take a look at the injunctions and all the court actions, these sales are not being done by Thayer Nursery. Thayer Nursery doesn't receive any money from the sale from any of the artisans. All right, it is all the artisans' money. The concept is bringing people who would not normally come to Thayer Nursery. And they have a mailing list, a significant, and it goes to a large number of different towns. So they are advertising the artisans as I've included in the, in my memorandum, to come for this specific purpose. Now, it works. I asked Maggie if she would run numbers for me, and typically, during this period of time with the artisans, the sales for the nursery actually come up between 32 and 51%. So the concept of agritourism, in order to boost the profits of the nursery, is a working concept. What does the nursery sell? The nursery sells Massachusetts-grown Christmas trees. It sells wreaths that are from Massachusetts-grown firs, kissing balls, poinsettias, Christmas cacti, swags, what do you call the rope? The roping. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the whole concept is working. It brings the people onto the farm in order to promote sales. Now, I did include in my memorandum a series of garden centers that do this. There are several relatively local, Attleboro, Winchester, are two of the Massachusetts segments. There was two others in there from Massachusetts.
Wayland.
Yes. But this is something that is common in the garden center industry now. So we would hope that the board would not want to give out-of-town garden centers an advantage during the Christmas holiday. One of the things, and I apologize, Exhibit B got left in my office. Maggie has one copy. I can share it with.
Do you need that for your presentation?
No, I can do it. This is a document that is put out by the Department of Agricultural Resources, giving municipalities some guidance as to agritourism. And what they pretty much say is the activity has to be accomplished on a farm, and it's pretty hard to say that their nursery is not a farm. It's an activity that can't be the principal activity of the farm. It cannot be the major profit sharing or the profit generation for the farm. And their nursery and the sponsoring the Christmas boutique clearly falls within the parameters that the Department of Agricultural Resources sets forth. So for those reasons, I believe that there is sufficient reason to overturn the building commissioner's interpretation that the sale of these items is prohibited. I think one of the important things is Thayer is not doing the selling. They are providing the venue for the local artisans to sell their products. Be happy to take questions.
Sure. Putting aside your agritourism argument, which we'll certainly read these materials, when I read the materials that Ms. Oldfield submitted, they seem to be more in the tenor of this being not agritourism, but she may have had that in her heart, but more this is a community celebration of the Christmas season that's become a tradition at the nursery, and that the principal purpose of it was to allow the Milton citizens, and particularly the children, to get together. Santa was there, she indicated. The Grinch is there. They have hot dogs and drinks, which I think are free, if I remember the materials. So that it was more of a community celebration as opposed to an effort to sell arts and crafts. The sense that I got of the materials that she submitted was that the sale of arts and crafts was part of the celebration because it allowed children to meet artisans who who have made goods with their own hands, and that may be an inspiration to the children, but they're not selling articles manufactured in China or other foreign countries or trinkets. And that the actual sale of the materials by the artisans was incidental to the primary purpose of this festival. And I wonder whether I read her materials correctly in that regard.
I don't believe you read her materials incorrectly. This is the tradition that the boutique sales were initially started. Obviously, Maggie is not an attorney, and did not look at things through the appropriate glasses. But their mailing list for the boutique clearly is not simply Milton. So it is a total outreach to bring people in to buy the artisans' materials and crafts, and as a secondary issue, the Thayer Nursery. Good luck to people who want to celebrate the holidays as well.
One of the things that was mentioned is that this holiday festival is a source of fundraising for Milton charities. And I was wondering whether, how that's accomplished at the festival. Is there a box or a collection jar that the people put money in, or do the artisans take a portion of their profit and contribute it to Milton charities? And so let me just leave that question out.
Well,
Yeah.
How it works is, you're correct by saying we give away, as Maggie mentioned, I don't even recall how many hot dogs last year.
Over 700.
Over 700 hot dogs. My father-in-law and his wife, my mother-in-law, come up from Long Island, New York to spend time with their grandson and my family. And as part of the tradition that was started 11 years ago, we started on an open fire, then it evolved into borrowing a trailer from a truck dealer that we used and purchased trucks from, that they took, we call it the weenie wagon, and we took that, and we've been using that for the past several years to rent a griddle and have a little structure. So now we have a place to disseminate the hot dogs and hot chocolate and Thatcher Farm eggnog and the such from this. We have a jar with, my father-in-law determines, because he's the guy donating his time, cooking the hot dogs, with my nephews and nieces all partaking in this, grilling and giving back to the community event. And whatever they choose, because what happened was they started saying, okay, well, where do I pay for this? And we said, well, we don't want to take any money. Thank you for coming and supporting our local business. So then we finally came up with he said to me, let's just put a can out there and see what we can collect. And we'll pick a charity. And that's how it started. So the first year it was the Milton Music Department, one of the years, because they came up and they were donating their time, the kids, singing and being part of this festival in the town. And we said, wow, that was nice of them. They were out with their families, a very diverse group, and this is kind of a reflection of what we're all about. Let's give back to them now, because they gave to us as a community. So then, that was year one. And then another time, that's sort of how, it's on the fly. We just sort of think about it, we listen to the folks, and last year was the American Legion. Because of what was happening and overseas and the soldiers, we felt like, let's give back to these folks. So that's why we selected that. My father-in-law's a Vietnam veteran, so that led to that decision. So that's all, it comes from us buying hot dogs, hot chocolate, brownies, cookies, and eggnog.
Can you tell us, in the last 5 years of your festival, approximately how much money has been contributed in the last 5 years to charitable organizations in the town of Milton?
I would say over $5,000.
And do you know, if the festival is from 10 to 4, what's the average time that a family stays at the festival? Is it a couple of hours, or do you find people who get there at 10 o'clock and they stay till closing?
Some families they take their photos with Santa Claus. We see a lot of times Christmas cards are prepared at our nursery. It depends on the families. Some people like to stay and mingle and meet friends that they haven't seen for a long time. And some like to come in, and just see Santa Claus and move along. So it all
Okay, so
depends from family to
The
family.
festival's open to everyone in the town of Milton, or people from surrounding cities and towns, is
Yeah,
that fair to
no
say?
admission fee. It's
And if kids want to have their picture taken with Santa Claus, do they take their own picture with Santa Claus, or do you have a photographer there?
No, they take their own.
Okay, so there's no charge, you're not making
No.
any money having Santa Claus pictures taken or
Correct.
anything like that?
Oh.
Now, Mr. DeLuna mentioned the agribusiness. I guess on the day of I understand that people going to Thayer Nursery for the festival may be as a result of touring the facility and meeting new people and maybe seeing Santa Claus, may have form an intent to come back and after they see your boughs and your trees and all of that, to purchase seasonal goods there at a later date. And I guess God bless them if they want to do that. Does the retail sales during the festival itself, do they increase as markedly on the day of the festival as Mr. DeLuna indicated?
That would be a question for Maggie.
Or do people spend more time socializing and having photographs with Santa Claus?
Nope, these are accurate percentages. I took it right off of our point-of-sale system today, and they truly reflect what happens during that day.
Okay. And did you do a study from after that one day, the percentage to which your sales have increased, both pre the festival and after the festival?
I did for a 4-year period. I looked at the Sunday before and the Sunday after. So in 2014, the Sunday increase, if the event happened, it always happens on the first Sunday in December. So from the Sunday before that to the Sunday of the event, sales increased 45.82%. The sales decreased the following week by 57.84%. 2013, the sales increased from the Sunday before the event to the event 32.39%, and then it decreased 67.99% after. 2012, it increased the Sunday before to 51.37%, and then it decreased 57.02%.
But I must say, these numbers, and I can leave this behind if you wish, these
It would be
represent,
helpful.
these represent the items that the nursery is allowed to sell in its general course of business. All right, the artisans and the craftsmen keep all the money that is generated by their sales. It does not go through the Thayer Nursery coffer.
Okay. Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Mr. Mullen, do you have questions?
So this is only one day.
It's one day, 6 hours, so it's 10 to 4.
Always 10 to 4. Always Sunday.
It is, yes.
How many people are there at any one time?
We have not been able to accurately predict that. We try to predict that for our own sake.
Is it a crowd?
Yeah.
And it really depends on the weather. If it's a really nice day, and it's a sunny day, people might linger a little bit longer if they see someone from across town or a family they haven't seen in a couple years from the sporting team your kids might have been on. So they might chat a little bit longer. If it's a cold day, they tend to go to the vendors, do their shopping, because the artisans are only there for one day. So if they don't do their shopping then they're kind of out of luck. They can't come back the following weekend.
What I've noticed is besides the weather being a factor, the timing of the Patriots game is huge. Really makes a huge difference. So if it's a 1 o'clock game, we're screwed.
Where are the Patriots on the?
I don't know yet. I don't like to know.
We haven't checked.
I don't want to go through all the planning and then figure it out.
Have there been any incidents in the past?
Not that I'm cognizant of, no.
Are people parking all over the neighborhood?
When We do have a parking lot filled up from time to time.
Parking lot on Forest?
Yes, they park on, and the police department, we've worked in conjunction with the police department, so we post one side of the street now. So traffic, from a safety standpoint, all the cars, they come around the afternoon before, post the sign, no parking on this side of the road.
On the other side?
Correct. So,
How about Hillside?
correct, they post Hillside as well, from Parkwood Drive up to Forest Street, and then all of Forest Street. So they park, the whole inside, the whole nursery side of the street is parked, no parking. It's
No
marked-
parking on the nursery side,
Correct,
on both of those streets.
yes,
So you park on the opposite side on Hillside and the opposite side on Forest?
yes.
How about Harlan?
No parking occurs on.
No parking at all?
No.
Have you ever been to the Hillside Scotts Woods Neighborhood Association on this issue? And have they taken a position? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Yes,
well, it's called, right now, the Hillside Neighborhood Association.
Not Scotts Woods?
Not
they
yet.
don't get it.
It hasn't
I see the
changed.
signs, I thought maybe they
Hasn't
changed.
officially changed yet.
Okay.
I believe.
You are a member, though?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes. So we grew up on the street, and we currently own 4 houses on the street. So both Josh and I live there. My sister Hannah lives there with her 4 children, and my mother lives there. So we're very aware and we're very protective of our neighborhood. And we go to the HNA meetings. They have never taken an official vote. I do believe that you received a email personally from the HNA president
I did?
today.
So, did I?
I don't remember.
I might have, I don't know. I'll
I-
check.
I
don't
got a
remember.
copy of it. And,
really? I should put that in the
and
record.
so he supported it. We've never taken, as far as I know, the HNA has never.
So the
taken-
association hasn't taken an official
No.
position, but members of the association have expressed support.
Correct,
That's your testimony.
yes.
Have you, when the people come to the nursery on, assuming the Patriots aren't playing at 1 o'clock game, and they come on that Sunday, do they interact with the workers?
yeah,
Yeah.
we help them.
Do you offer tours of your nursery?
No, we're too busy selling trees.
If they want to come back during the week, we're there, and it's actually very pretty. If you see in some of the pictures, a perfect day for us is when there is a light covering of snow, and it really is picture perfect. And if they want to come back and do a tour.
Is the
we allow
nursery
it.
growing area open for them?
Yes, the nursery area is the nursery growing area is open for anyone to wander around and to take pictures throughout the property if they like.
On the agritourism issue, have you ever talked to the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources about this issue? And is there, I read the memo, we didn't have much time, but I tried to read it while, so that's one question. I'm wondering whether they know about this and they've taken a position, or whether they've taken a position on a one-time event is agritourism, this kind of thing. I think there's an intensity issue here. The memo really speaks to, I think, more, and uses as examples more of a regular activity rather than one, 6 hours a day. I just wonder if they've spoken on that issue at all.
I have not spoken with John LeBeau about that.
He is the commissioner or the general counsel?
He's the commissioner,
He's the commissioner.
former nurseryman,
Former nurseryman?
yes.
As he should be, right, if he's the commissioner of MDAR. Okay.
And yes, this is directly related to this one-day event, but if there's ever any other events, which we've held previously, we've had a fall festival before, where we've had a wagon being a tractor pulling wagons around of kids taking a tour of the nursery. We've had pumpkin painting. So we have had various events throughout the year, during different years. But this denial came for this one event. We've hosted farmers markets in the past. So we have had different events throughout the year, but right now we're here because of this one
And you
event.
continue to have these events?
Well, we haven't had a fall festival in a couple of years now.
You want to address the parking issue?
Yeah, the parking issue, again, what Frank wanted me to reiterate was, the parking on the one side of the road is not dictated by us at the nursery, it's dictated by the police department. That's the way that they wanted to handle it.
In the fire department.
Milton Police?
Yes.
Okay. I have one more question.
Please.
Where is the application? No, the commissioner's denial.
It should be
Yeah,
attached.
okay. So the commissioner's denial, good to see you, Commissioner. It says, only products for retail sale which are directly incidental to the permitted use should be offered for sale. That's what the ruling of the Board of Appeals was, right?
That's correct.
Okay. But did the ruling of the Board of Appeals specifically prohibit the sale of arts, clothing, ceramics, jewelry? Or are you just saying that you can't sell things that aren't, that you're just making an opinion that those aren't incidental?
I would have to say I'm making an opinion that those aren't
Do you know,
incidental.
John, for sure?
No, I think that it does not specifically refer
Okay.
to those particular items.
Okay, thank you.
I think the important thing here is the Thayer Nursery is not selling.
No, I understand.
Okay, that's.
Mr. DeLuna, let me ask you this. I've been to some of these arts and crafts fairs, not at Thayer Nursery, I have to confess. And the photographs that you've given us here, do these photographs fairly and typically reflect the types of items that the vendors are selling at this holiday festival, such as the knitted goods and bead jewelry and what I'd call more country fairish type of things, as opposed to 18-karat jewelry pieces or fancy blown glass pieces and bowls that come from Italy and other places. So this is kind of, my question is, are the items that are reflected on these 25 or 30 photographs, are they typical of the articles that the vendors sell at your fair?
Yes, they are. Because it's our 11th year, we actually do try to change up our artisans, because we're always looking for something new and different, and we've been contacted even this year to maybe sell honey from a 13-year-old boy in town. So it is a mix of food items, it's a mix of jewelry. We have an 86-year-old woman who moved in with her daughter here in Milton last year, and she suffers from dementia, and she knits pot holders, and she had a table last year.
And did you play music through outdoor loudspeakers or anything like that?
No, the chorus usually just wanders around, and will go into one building or then be outside and then wander into another area.
And the chorus or minstrels, whatever you want to call them, are they local students or are
Yeah.
they high school,
From Milton High School.
Milton High School?
Yeah, we've had singers from the Boston School of Music, because we do have a lot of clients from Dorchester. So we've had the Boston School of Music come with their students as well.
Okay, you don't do any tractor rides or bobcat rides or anything as part of the...
Not a
Yeah,
part
is
of
that-
this event, no.
Mr. David, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Mainly, and again, like Mr. Mullen, I tried to glance at some of your submissions, but I haven't had a chance to read them completely, and, your legal analysis and your legal argument, but I have a few questions about it. Because I noticed, the reference to Massachusetts statutes and obviously the brochure or publication from about agritourism. strictly, without considering those, I guess, is there any argument that you make under Milton zoning and under prior Board of Appeals decisions? And I guess there's also a court decision in this.
I didn't do the analysis under your zoning bylaws specifically because the 40A Section 3 would preempt them. So you, if it's an agricultural activity, the board, the municipality, cannot require the special permit or a variance to which conditions would be attached. So therefore, I did not make the analysis on the bylaws.
Okay, so it's, and the application of that statute is based upon your argument that this, the Holiday Boutique and, with all of its various, the artisans and the various items sold is an agricultural use.
Yes, it's agritourism, yes.
Okay, and one of my other questions, well, let me back up. So, okay, so you're saying that the statute preempts it because it is an agricultural use under state law.
For special permits and variances, yes.
What do you mean for special permits and variances?
That's, you can't require a special permit or a variance for that activity as long as it falls under the definition of 128, Section 1A.
Okay. All right. And did you find any cases that said that this type of, seasonal fair does fall within that? Are there any cited in there that I?
If you, I did not cite any cases. The principal case really is Nissenbaum versus Boxford.
Remember what court that was?
That was, well, it went up to the appeals court.
Okay.
And that was an issue where Inglesby Farm was conducting, not necessarily arts and crafts, but they had a whole variety of agritourism. The court deemed it was proper. The building commissioner was authorized to look at the records to make sure they met their statutory quotas.
Mm-hmm. And that's a fairly recent case?
Yeah, it's 2014.
Okay. And does the case use, and are there any statutes that use the term agritourism?
No, agritourism is something, it actually came over from Europe.
Okay.
But it as you can see in the brochure, it's a growing matter in the United States. I had some statistics. It's a significant activity now on farms to bring activity onto the farm.
Okay.
There are issues, I'm doing other matters right now where farms and municipalities are allowing weddings to be done on farms. It's very, very common. I have one situation now where a miniature golf course was installed in a nursery in order to attract people to the nursery.
But they don't use the term agritourism, right?
Yes, they do, yes.
Well, oh.
That is an agritourism activity in both instances, because you're causing an activity on the farm
Yep.
that will make it a destination.
And I'm sorry, is this in Massachusetts?
Yes, it is.
It is, okay. All right. And is that, can you get us a copy of that? Or if you're going to, there's a memo that you're going to provide us which is the MDAR law memo, right?
You have that?
You got a copy?
Oh, that's Exhibit B? Oh,
No,
okay.
Yeah, he's got one copy that's full.
Oh, one copy? Okay, good. So we can make.
Yeah, I apologize. I ran Exhibit B off, and on my desk it sits.
Would you mind,
Multiple copies are on your desk.
10.
Yeah. Woburn.
Yes.
Terrific.
would you mind just kind of summarizing what that memo says?
It's a 4-page memorandum, and it was actually put together by a former assistant attorney general. And basically, it says that the agritourism is an accepted and promoted within the Commonwealth. And it sets up parameters. So when a municipality is looking at whether or not an activity is being conducted for agritourism purposes, is it, what are the parameters? And one of the first things they say is it has to be an actual farm. And the farm can be determined by a number of different ways. And I don't think in this instance there's any doubt that their nursery is a farm. Then it has to, you take a look at it, is it the principal occupation of the farm? Is it the principal activity of the farm? Or is it an actual ancillary activity that will bring people in? And I dare say a 4-hour event that occurs one day a year is the principal activity of their nursery. It goes on with some other parameters. You know, you want to take a look at the size of the farm, the adequacy of the farm, and whether there is sufficient controls of the activity. All these things are considered. And I think if you read it, you'll see that their nursery is square on.
And it talks about zoning.
It does not talk about zoning at all, in particular because the 40A Section 3 would exempt the
So it does,
zoning.
but it does reference that, or?
I believe it
Yeah,
does,
okay.
yes.
And one other question, if I may. I see the group of pages about garden centers and other, I guess, nurseries that have the Christmas fairs and seasonal fairs. You didn't happen to have a chance or look at any of the towns that those are in to see whether they had any zoning provisions or things? that
Well,
had the-
actually, several of those farms are my clients.
Oh, okay.
And in the case of Mahoney's, Mahoney's is in a residential district. It is more than 5 acres. They do conduct these all the time. The farm stand that is in, it's right off of Route 2.
Russell.
Not Russell's.
Stonegate. Wilson
No.
Farm.
I hope this isn't one of your clients, Mr. Dillon.
Yes, it
They'll be
is.
they'll be very disappointed.
Well, that's okay, he's
Unfortunately,
focused on us, so I'm fine with that.
Unfortunately, they're not in enough trouble that I'm going to remember them.
That's all right. This isn't a pop quiz, that's all.
Briggs. Weston, Wagoner.
All these names are coming. Anyways, the 3 that I did mention that are Massachusetts are all in residential areas.
And they're all without a special permit or
Without a
other,
special permit.
or other provision in the zoning or variance or anything that allows them to occur.
Correct.
I think that's,
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Dillon. I appreciate your presentation. We have Mr. Prondak here, and I think we'd like to hear from Mr. Prondak. Do you want to be heard, Mr. Prondak?
I do.
Yes, well, welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank
Sorry
you.
we delayed you so long.
That's quite all right. Joe Prondak, Building Commissioner.
Yep.
So I'd just like to briefly point out for the board that back in 2010, there was a request made by a representative of Thayer Nursery, I believe Doris Raya. I may have the name not quite correct, but that was in 2010. There was a request initially to former town administrator Kevin Murn as to whether or not at the farmer's market they could sell things like arts, crafts, jewelry, housewares, et cetera, et cetera. And Kevin Murn asked me to respond to that, and I responded in 2010 by saying that at that time, and my position may have evolved a little bit from then, but at that time I said art, crafts, flowers, honey, jams, bakery, cheese, wine, vegetables, candles, painted items, soaps, jewelry, would not be allowed under the zoning bylaw, or under the special permit that Thayer operated under at that time. And then last year, there was a period of time where Thayer Nursery opened up an artisan shop on their property for a period of several weeks, I believe. And I was,
Sorry, what was this, Joe?
this was last year.
Last year. Okay.
And so last year, in 2014, when that was brought to our attention, we reviewed it, and I also reviewed the activity with town council, given the complex history that we're operating under. And so last year, we said basically the same thing. My point that I'm getting at is we sent a letter to the Oldfield saying that household items, pottery, picture frames, plants, things of that nature were not permitted to be sold at the nursery because they were not incidental to the type of nursery products that are allowed under the special permit. And so in this year, when the request was made to the town administrator, or the town administrator was informed of the upcoming holiday boutique, and that certain products were intended to be sold, the town administrator asked me to form an opinion on that, which I did in the current letter that's being appealed. But I think it's important for us to point out that, you know, mostly for the members of the public as well, because it's been suggested that the town of Milton, or the building department's, or the office of the building inspector, has denied the permit for the holiday fair. We have not done that. We have only said that there are certain products that cannot be sold, whereas other products could be sold. So essentially, that's my position. I think, again, everything I do, every opinion I offer relative to Thayer Nursery, especially now, is done with consultation from town council, as was done here. The term agritourism is new to me. I've not, first time I've heard that tonight. That was not presented as part of the proposal. I guess it's important to point out too that there was no, along with Ms. Oldfield's request, there was no scope provided. It was just a generalization of products to be sold. So I have, you know, I don't know if there's, you know, 800 different size portraits of, or picture frames, or just 2 or 3. So it was a very general question that was asked and a very general answer that was given.
And the answer that you gave was consistent with what you believed the Board of Appeals decisions reflected.
Correct.
And so if an exception were to be made for a 6-hour or 8-hour holiday celebratory affair, that's something which would be the prerogative of the Board of Appeals,
I agree.
and not the prerogative of the building inspector.
Yes.
Otherwise, he would be the Board of Appeals if you were making that type of decision.
A position I would not want.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't want to be building inspector either, Joe. It's a very, very difficult job. Let me see, Mr. Mullen, do you have any questions of our building inspector, or building commissioner, I should say?
Is there a special permit here?
Is there a special, Thayer Nursery operates under both, under the special permit.
Do we have it here today?
Oh, do we have it here with us? We do, I do not.
Okay.
Maybe in Matthew Dunn's submittal.
No.
I have a
The
copy.
denial was in the submittal, and the court decision after the denial. The most recent decision, but the underlying permit's not here. I haven't seen it. I understand that there's been no claim that anything in the permit would authorize the use, but I just want to familiarize myself with the permit. That's the, oh, no, I have that.
You have it? I have it, right there.
Are you hiding it from
And
me
I've read
again?
it. I've actually read it.
Ah!
And attached to that is a decision that dealt with
No.
Coulter Nursery, with Judge Sand's decision delineating what's an appropriate sale of goods.
What were you going to give us just now?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going
Correct that.
to give you the special permit,
What's the date on that?
1967.
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
And do you want the 87 one as well?
You haven't seen it.
But just as a note, we didn't have 5 acres back in.
Yeah.
Right, and now you do.
1967.
Yeah, no, that's right,
And
yeah.
then we had the 5 acres, and then it was reduced down to 2 acres in 2010. So I believe the
Can we have these?
email.
You have copies, Ms. Oldfield? Okay.
Okay, I mean to interrupt. Oh, you want to give them to Ted?
Well, are you reading both of them
Yeah,
at the
read that
same
out.
time? No. So,
Yeah, read that.
Ted, that's for you. Do you have any questions of Mr.
No,
Prun-
I'm sorry.
Okay, Ted, do you have questions of Mr.
One
Prundock?
question, I'm just assuming that when you wrote your denial or gave your denial, you were, it was on the basis, as Mr. DeLuna indicated, that Thayer Nursery wasn't receiving any of the proceeds from the sale of any of the artisans' goods, but that they were all going directly to the vendors, or would that not make any difference in your determination? Or?
In my opinion, that really doesn't make a difference, and I had no knowledge either way of where the proceeds were going.
Okay, thank you.
Should we
Well, it's
continue
not
with the
just-
hearing and then come back to you?
Just as I understand it, it's not just the proceeds. The testimony has been that Thayer Nursery is not conducting the activity. They're sponsoring the activity as an agri-tourist activity consistent with what the Department of Agriculture is interpreting. So, I mean, there's a difference there. And so I don't think I think it's as, I think though, at least with respect to this argument, the who becomes important. Because if it were Thayer Nursery that was doing the activity, it couldn't be agritourism by definition. That, as I understand it, yeah.
Correct.
Ordinarily, when we apply zoning, zoning runs with the land, so that's how we think about it, unless we're dealing with a particular special permit issue. So that's not to say that but you weren't dealing with agritourism.
That's correct.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, okay, all right. I think we all understand each other. That's helpful. Thank you.
But you weren't presented with any materials regarding
I was not.
agritourism by Thayer or Mr. DeLuna or anyone else?
I guess it could be the first time he's heard the term.
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So shall we proceed with the hearing?
I have
Mr.
one more
Mullin?
question. Can I have
Please.
a question of the applicant?
Of
Would you be all
course,
right?
of course you
So
can.
this agritourism is fairly new. I'm familiar with these weddings that are happening on farms, but there's been really no rulings on this other than that one case to which you referred?
Not in Massachusetts.
How about other boards of appeals? Are you familiar with boards of appeals making decisions on this?
Usually it hasn't gone to the.
It hasn't gotten that far yet.
Correct.
And in terms of uses in the Commonwealth, how long would this agritourism, how long has it been around? I mean, it's probably been around since there's been a Commonwealth, but how long has it been around as an articulated legal doctrine?
Probably about 15 years.
Thank you.
So I think what we'll do is, about 25 after 9, we want to try to pick up speed if we can a little bit. But let me ask for a show of hands here. If I ask for those people present this evening who want to speak in support of Thayer Nursery's position in this matter, how many people would we have that would want to be heard? Okay, that looks like about 5 or 6 people. And if I further asked you if you could perhaps limit your testimony to a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, is everyone able to do that? Okay, so I think what we should do is hear from people who are in support of Thayer Nursery's position, and then we'll hear from persons present who oppose Thayer Nursery's position. So, Dr. Dunn, did I see your name, did I see your hand go up?
Yes.
Who would you like to speak first, sir?
Speak later, but I'll speak first.
Okay, whatever you prefer.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Martin Dunn. I'm here with my wife, Carol. We live at 50 Briarbrook Street, Milton, where we have lived for 45 years. Our property, while the address is on Briarbrook Street, starts on Parkwood Drive, goes around the corner to Barbary Lane, so it's a corner type lot. Tonight is many of the things that have been said would be repetitious for me, in that I made several notes, and I will try not to repeat any of those. But I'm reminded that daily, watching television or picking up the newspaper, all we're seeing is bad news. And what we want is what's happening here to the country, that things seem to be going wrong. And here, tonight, we're talking about a family event, a community affair that I look upon as good news and something that would help to build a community. And we do not have enough of these events presently. And I'm reminded of a quotation which I took directly from Wikipedia. And the quote is, "He scorns the Christmas season and the boisterous festivities customarily celebrated during the holiday, apparently irritated by the happiness of others and deriving pleasure from spoiling other people's merriment." I think if you think a minute, who are they talking about? And they're talking about... I think you need to put a stop to this. I'm not talking about anyone. I'm talking about the Grinch. And I think what I'd like to see changed in this is he applauds the Christmas season and the festivities customarily celebrated during the holiday, and apparently pleased by the happiness of others and deriving pleasure from watching other people's merriment. And that's my appeal. I'm not talking about any person in general. I'm talking about a play, about a musical, and that's the definition of the main character in it, as everyone knows. And so I support that of my wife and myself. And for your information, I know, Mr. Leonard, you've seen me here before. This happens to be my 26th appearance before the various boards here, speaking on behalf of Thayer Nursery. We have come to reserve Wednesday and Thursday evenings so that I can come to these events. So we are very much in favor of it. It's a family event. It's a community affair. Our daughters grew up in the neighborhood, and we see what's gone on for the last 11 years. And boy, if we stop it, the bad news persists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dunn. We appreciate it. Who'd like to speak? Sir, why don't you come on up here? I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Tom Hurley. I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. If we had known you were back there, we would have
That's okay.
had you speak first.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Welcome to the Board of Appeals, Mr. Hurley. I think it's the first time we've seen you here.
I think it is, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I am speaking not as the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I'm speaking much the way Selectman Conlon and Selectman Burns did, just for themselves as a resident. But it's quite obvious that we all do support this holiday festival. And I'll make my comments very brief because it really does reflect a lot of the other comments that I've heard already. But sometimes you just have to make a decision that's right and just, and I think this is one of those times. Thayer Nursery's hosted this holiday event for some 11 years, and it's events of this type that make Milton a great place. If the holiday festival is not allowed to continue, I think we'll all lose something very special. So it's just, seeing the excited faces of children come to visit Santa, the smiles of parents and other adults who come to experience the true meaning of the holidays, the true meaning of community, and being with good friends away from the hustle and bustle of crowded impersonal shopping malls. That's what this thing's really about. And, we should hold on to true community as dearly as we can. So, Thayer Nursery has the right to hold a farmer's market. Farmers markets, obviously, local producers of agricultural products can come to sell share and sell their wares. And here we're asking for the sale of goods from local artisans who've painstakingly and lovingly produced with their own hands their products. You know, when you really think about it, how much different is that than a farmer producing crops? So these people rely on craft fairs and other events of this type to share their talent, make a small return. To deny this opportunity, then would be a shame. So again, I just urge the Board of Appeals to consider granting this, either a waiver of the special permit or denial of the building commissioner. And that's not to say that we do 100% support the building commissioner. He has a job to do. He did his job.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. We appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you for
Thank you.
staying so late. I'm sorry. Who'd like to speak next? Ma'am, why don't you come on up?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Carla Morey, precinct used to be 11, I think it's 10 now. Yeah. My children are now 20, 22, and they still say, Mom, don't go get the tree until we can come there and go to Thayer Nursery, have our hot chocolate, et cetera, et cetera. It's something that is instilled in them. They grew up in this town, they love this town, and even when they're away at college, they come back, and it's something that they look forward to. Having been in the wine business for umpteen years, I can tell you agro-tourism is a really cool thing, and that's really something I think the town can benefit from if you can do some further study with that. I think that, as Mr. Hurley said, it's about the kids, really, but it's also about the big kids. Because I get to see how my children are enjoying it, and I completely understand how you made your ruling based upon the rules, the laws, and everything, so I respect that. But I think that there's definitely room for there's wiggle room here. It's a town event. I belong to a group in town that does a lot of hand-making of crafts that we sell twice a year or pull up from our garden so that we can fundraise to do things for the town. We maintain many civic areas within the town, and Thayer Nursery, through their dedication, has actually helped us do some of those things. So I know that's a little different, but we're very simpatico with what they're trying to do, basically. And we're all about bringing the town together, and I think this is one of the things where it spans all generations, has brought wonderful memories to me and my husband watching our children grow up. And I think it is a great time of year, and I would say to all people in the neighborhood, just come on down if I hope that you will grant this appeal. Everyone should just come together, have a great time, and enjoy the holidays. You know, we all worked very hard this year, and it's a great ending to it. Thank you.
Great, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Who would like to speak next? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Carol Stalker, and I live at 291 Hillside Street. I got about 3 minutes, and I got about 3 hats. And one is that I'm a former president of the Hillside Neighborhood Association and a founder. And I can say that there's never been a vote on this event because it has never been an issue. And the whole neighborhood is mystified as to why this is an issue now. Because it's a very beloved event. And it is especially important to the new families who are moving in with new children, who we are trying to enlist in the neighborhood association so we can maintain our feeling of community. And Josh and Maggie have done a great service to the Hillside Neighborhood Association, which they're members of, and to the neighborhood by involving these new families with their young children. Maggie has been a member of my social committee, and they have hosted Easter egg hunts there this year and all sorts of child-oriented events that were nonprofit and free. I think if you would read the emails that have come in. I would guess, because I've seen a few of them, and I will point out that the ratio is 13 pro and 1 against, that there is a rising tide of unhappiness, exasperation, a sense that Thayer Nursery is being picked on. They have been in front of the planning board this year for, well, more than 24 times. Our roads have been torn up by, I guess it's a town project, gas and water lines that have made them almost impossible for their customers to get to them. They badly need events like this to reestablish their constituency. And they seem to be, well, my second hat is that for 35 years, I have lived as an abutter of their nursery, and I've been very delighted with them. Yes, sometimes people park their cars in front of my house. Do I mind? No. And the third thing I want to say is that for 35 years, I have been the national award-winning garden columnist for the Boston Globe. And as such, I write about agricultural tourism, and I write about events like this. And I do feel passionately that it is very important for towns to nurture their farmers markets and their surviving towns, their surviving farms. And I thought I heard Mr. Product say, though I might have heard incorrectly, that when this woman, Doris Abey, asked him in 2010 if she could sell something at the farmer's market, that he wrote that the farmer's market of Milton could not sell flowers, honey, cheese, jewelry, and I thought he said vegetables, that the farmer's market couldn't sell vegetables. And I'm thinking, why put roadblocks in front of things that keep a community functioning as something other than something to send people down the street to Quincy to buy their food at Costco's and their garden stuff at Home Depot. So I think we need a paradigm shift in how we're treating Thayer Nursery and maybe the farmer's market. I'm not really up to speed on that, but I know what other towns do, and they're very nurturing of these kind of great local resources. And I just have to ask, why are we, didn't they say that there's a woman with dementia who makes pot holders that is sold at this, and they're giving the money to charity? I don't know why we're spending an evening on this, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Docker. We appreciate, good to see you again. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, that's fine.
I had those.
Yeah.
Hi. My name is Annabelle McSweeney, and I live on Sias Lane here in Milton. I'm here to speak in favor of the Thayer Nursery Holiday Boutique. I have been attending the boutique for the past 5 or 6 years, and I have vended at it as well. I like to go to the Holiday Boutique because it's where my family and friends buy unique gifts for each other that are made by the people there. It is a fun place and a great place to spend time with friends. And this year, as a freshman at Milton High School, I was looking forward to hearing my peers sing at the Holiday Boutique. It's become a part of my family tradition to go to the boutique and shop around and sit by the fire. The Holiday Boutique is something that means a lot to my family, and we've experienced it since the beginning. And it isn't something any of us would like to see go. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming tonight and staying so late. Is there any other person who wishes to be heard in favor of the application of Thayer Nursery? Okay, there is, yes, sir.
Good evening.
Hello. What's your name and address?
Scott Johnson, 11 Hillside Street.
Good. Welcome to the Board of Appeals, Mr. Johnson.
Well, thanks. It's nice to be here. And I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Just ask where 11 is.
Where is 11? It's at 11.
It's at 10 or 9?
It's the first house on the right as you turn off of Route 28, the yellow house on the corner. You know, this is an extension of something that, in my opinion, has gotten way out of hand, and it started back, this has been going on since about 2000, then it had a break for around 10 years, and then it kicked up again about 3 years ago. And I understand that a lot of people have, the letter of the law is what's being followed here. And I know you guys are all, a lot of you are attorneys, and it'll all come back to that. But there's a human side to this that I don't think is, you know, you can take the letter of the law too far. And I think that everybody's doing their job because we need laws in order to keep our country organized. And I'm not diminishing that. And I know that Joe Prondak over here has to represent the best interests of the town because somebody we would up and sue the town. I understand it's a rock and a hard spot position. I really do. But to that point, the spirit of the law has to be taken into consideration versus manipulation of the spirit of the law to suit the needs of a minority of the residents. I'm not talking minority in terms of any particular ethnic group or religion or creed or anything. And at town meeting, for instance, about a year ago, it was voted nearly unanimously by the townspeople that they wanted to basically have a special permit issued for Thayer Nursery, and there's been basically over a year of argument and no compromise on the part of the complainants as Thayer has presented one compromise after another to the planning board to keep it open and to try not to go out of business. And they've suffered greatly, and there's been tremendous legal fees wasted on the plaintiff's side and the defending side, in my opinion. Lots of people's time has been wasted, where I think a lot of cooperation in the spirit of community, cooperation, and human kindness to one another is what's been really missing in this whole debate. And thinking about how would you like it if you were put in the shoes of the Oldfields, but worse than that, their employees, many of which are immigrants that have families they're supporting overseas. And these people have suffered in their income. So there's a lot more to it than just people, the letter of the law. It's the spirit of the law. I don't think the spirit of the law intends to take things like this away. There's also, Mr. Leonard made a great point earlier, and I'll ad lib on it a little bit, that if you can't get along with your neighbors, you're fighting with your neighbors, you ought to move. And needless to say, he did also say that there is the law to be included with that. But the bottom line is that this is all spurring from complaints from people that moved into the neighborhood after a long-term precedent had already been established. They knew it was there. They used Thayer Nursery to landscape their home. And then they turn around and for 3 years they put us all through meeting after meeting, meeting after meeting of trouble. So to that point, the greater public good, in my opinion, the children of the town, the people that work, the employees that depend on this business, not just the owners of the business, are being usurped by people that were fully aware of the situation they were coming into, and now, in my opinion, there's been a manipulation of the law. Opinion, but I think I have a right to say it.
Okay.
And there's a precedent for the nursery being there for years. That being said, I'll close with this. If you study Tsarist Russia and the overthrow of the Russian czars, the non-productive regulatory government started to pass regulation after regulation so that people couldn't be in compliance with regulations. It became virtually impossible. And in addition to that, they took over businesses because people violated regulations, or they put them out of business by regulation. And what's gone on here now is that the town has been put in a position where, because of the threat of lawsuits, they have to actually dictate what can and can't be sold and regulate a business that's having trouble surviving. And at turn, who's suffering about it is the townspeople. And the people whose children come here, gather, enjoy these festive events. So I speak in behalf of Thayer Nursery, and I hope that you'll grant them the permits. And thank you very much for all your service.
Good, thank you for coming tonight.
All
I
of you.
appreciate that. All right, it's now 9:45. We usually go to about 10:30. Let's see, does anyone wish to speak in support of Mr. Prondak's position? Mr. Johanning. Welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. My name is...
Let me thank you for your patience and your...
Just like
you're-
Dr. Dunn, I'm used to it.
you're-
My name is Phil Johanning. I live at 23 Parkwood Drive. I'm a direct abutter to Thayer Nursery. I think really this is all about the law and my right to be protected by the law as much as anyone else. And that's what I ask for. I ask for the same protection as every other townsperson receives. And what I find is that, you know, well, Joe is trying to enforce the law, and we need to respect everyone's rights and everyone's right to be protected by the law. I want to read a letter from my attorney that was delivered to you today. This letter is submitted on behalf of Philip Johanning and John Rowe in opposition to Thayer Nursery's appeal of Milton Building Commissioner Joseph Prondak's zoning enforcement order dated September 22nd, 2015. As you may know, the order was issued in response to Thayer Nursery's inquiry to Town Administrator Anne Marie Fagan regarding what items can be sold at the Thayer Nursery site during its proposed holiday fair. Again, this is not about the holiday fair. It's about what can be done at the holiday fair. And I think people are confusing the two. The holiday fair is not an issue, or other similar events. And he mentioned similar events because there are a number of similar events. In the order, Commissioner Prondak informed Thayer Nursery that products including, but not limited to, arts, clothing, ceramics, jewelry, housewares, candles, soaps, and carvings are not allowed to be sold at 270 Hillside Street. Thayer Nursery appeals this determination. Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe maintain that Commissioner Prondak's order is completely in line with both this board's decision dated September 26, 2013, as well as the decision of the Honorable Paul D. Wilson dated June 10, 2014, which specifically addressed what can be sold at the Thayer Nursery site. In the September 26 decision, this board commanded that the building commissioner conduct a review of the retail sale of goods at Thayer Nursery and issue any and all necessary orders that Thayer Nursery cease and desist from the sale of items and goods not reasonably incidental or accessory to customary nursery-related operations. That's the important part, because that's what was in the original special permit, and not specifically authorized by a special permit previously issued to Thayer Nursery by this Board of Appeals. Significantly, on June 10, 2014, Judge Wilson directed Commissioner Prondak to do the exact same thing. In accordance with these instructions, Commissioner Prondak has already explicitly delineated the items that can be sold on the Thayer Nursery site, and Judge Wilson has approved his decision on this topic. Arts, clothing, ceramics, jewelry, housewares, candles, soaps, and carvings were not on this list. Furthermore, this board has never issued Thayer Nursery a special permit to sell any of these items, and such business activities are expressly precluded in the Residence AA Zone District by the bylaws. As such, Commissioner Prondak's order is consistent with the board's decision dated September 26, 2013. Judge Wilson's decision dated June 10, 2014, and the bylaws. Accordingly, it should be upheld by this board. So, you know, I hear about agritourism, but I haven't seen any cases discussing it, and neither has my attorney. So we don't have any rulings or any decisions regarding this, this notion of agritourism. So, you know, whatever that says, we don't have any decisions, we don't have anything. So, you know, I don't really think that's something that we can really discuss tonight, because we don't have any data and we don't have any case law. Additionally, I don't know what we're talking about here. Are we talking about a one-day special permit? Is that what we're talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
Yeah, has it been applied for?
Implicitly, I think what they're asking for is a one-day special permit. Ms. Conlon suggested in her letter that the board could amend the existing special permit to allow this fair use for one day with.
And that could be done without an application? That could be done without a public hearing?
Well, this is the public hearing, and the.
But not everybody had the knowledge that this was an application. Not everyone had the knowledge of what it was that was being asked. What it was advertised as was a hearing of Joe Prondak's decision.
Right.
And so there was no public announcement of a
I
meeting.
think that very technically speaking, you're absolutely correct. And on the legal merits of this, we've been asked whether to sustain or to overrule Mr. Prondak's decision on this particular sale of these goods.
I wanted to quickly read some items from your decision, the board's decision. And what it said is that the building commissioner conduct a review of the retail sale of items and goods at Thayer Nursery and issue any and all necessary orders that Thayer Nursery cease and desist from the sale of items not reasonably incidental or accessory to customary nursery-related operations and not previously specifically authorized by a special permit previously issued to Thayer Nursery by this Board of Appeals. So there would have had to have, we would have had to have a specific permit to do this type of operation, and I don't believe that we do. Additionally, in Judge Wilson's decision, he says that patio furniture, bocce, and other outdoor games, propane and wood-fired heating appliances, and portable cooking grills cannot be considered accessory incidental to the nursery business, and sales, display, and storage of these must cease immediately. So what he's talking about is items that are not accessory and incidental to a nursery business. And I don't think that the items that Joe has said could not be sold are incidental to a nursery business. I also want to just give you quickly a picture of, and what I'd like you to do is note the date.
Are these all the same?
Yeah, they're all the same.
All right,
Note the date in the lower right-hand corner. We were talking about the first Sunday in December. But what date do you see on the photo? What we're talking about is not something that's going on a first Sunday in December, but last year it went on for several weeks until we notified Mr. Prondak of this type of activity. Now, I wrote I want to close by saying I wrote an article in the Milton Times a number of weeks ago, and what I said is that I did not make these laws. I did not write this special permit. I did not do any of those things. So they can't be really attributed to me. But what I do insist upon is the protection of the bylaws of the town and of the directive of the special permit. I insist on that. And I will do everything within my power to receive those same protections and those same rights to peaceful enjoyment that I believe that I have. And one of the things that you don't think about or haven't thought about or nobody has looked at is when you're selling 700, you're giving away 700 hot dogs, how many people is that? And where do they park? Do they park on Parkwood Drive, my street? And how much congestion occurs on that intersection. You know, do I have a right to a quiet Sunday before the Christmas season? Would that be part of my rights? So I guess I would just simply say that, you know, I didn't make the laws, I didn't write the special permit, but I do insist upon the protections that are afforded to me under them. So I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johanning. We appreciate your comment. Mr. Rowe, do you want to be heard?
Briefly.
Thank you.
Just want to, John Rowe, 23 Parkwood Drive. Just wanted to reiterate the fact that we are not against the holiday fair to sell Christmas trees and wreaths. As a matter of fact, that is a right that their nursery has, and nobody is here to stop them from selling Christmas trees and wreaths. Also, I wanted to enter into evidence, as part of the hearing, a letter dated December 4th, 2014, from Joe Prondak to Thayer Nursery, telling them that they could not have the artisans on the property at that point in time. And what he documents in the letter are advertisements that were pulled off social media that indicate that the shed is now open for the artisans, and it started on October 17th, and it's open several days a week. This also...
Is that 2015, Mr. Rowe, or
2014.
14, yes, I remember that.
And it talks about the things that people can buy there, such as including professional portraits of your family, professional portraits. I don't find that to be artisan. Table linens, gifts. So I'd just like to submit this as part of the public hearing. And also I'd like to submit Judge Sand's ruling on the lighting case, in which Judge Sands of the Land Court, that basically says that this board does not have the authority to authorize anything in a special permit that is against the zoning bylaws of the town. And in this case, you know, Judge Sands, the ruling, you know, states that these items are not accessory to the nursery. So I'd just like to enter this into...
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate that. I know we have these documents, but it's easier to have them handy. Have you finished your comments?
Yes.
Could I ask you just one question here? And you know, it would be this: I can understand if Thayer was running artisan markets on a weekly basis, or if they were going to have a series of Christmas celebrations, let's say every weekend after Thanksgiving, and selling all of these types of articles. Does it make any difference to you that it's just one occasion here? We've never addressed the issue of what they can do or sell at an artisan market, and how often these markets are being held, and that may be an entirely different issue than we're facing the present time. At the present time, what we're doing is we're facing just Thayer's request for one 6 or 7 hour holiday celebration. And I guess my question is, does that influence you one way or the other as to whether if they sold a sweater there, or if the artisan sold a sweater to a youngster, or if somebody was carving wood and was showing the children during the Christmas season on this one occasion how they carve wood and all of that as part of a celebration, a holiday celebration, and not necessarily as part of the sale of goods, generally speaking. I mean, does that merit an exception in your mind, or is it worth?
I just want to say, I believe that this is a moneymaker. Having a professional photographer there to take portraits for sale,
I thought they said
jewelry.
just the opposite. I asked them that, and they said that was not
Well,
taking
you
place.
have the evidence of what they advertise. You know, I don't see that it's going to be any different. Now, last year, there was a rebuttal in the Milton Times from a woman by the name of Watanabe, who lives in Weymouth. And she is part of a women's group, I believe, that organizes crafts fairs or women who make jewelry and make table linens and things like that. So these are people that are coming from out of town, and they're making a lot of money in a residential neighborhood in Milton. And I believe that there are many, many venues for people who make wares to sell, and these venues should be in a commercial area. If the town wants to perhaps have a craft fair, then perhaps it should be done on town land instead of in a residential neighborhood. And you're well aware of the neighborhood. It's very, the roads really don't support, the infrastructure doesn't support traffic that this event brings in from, a lot of out-of-towners. The testimony of the Oldfields talked about how they advertise this to, many, many out-of-towners, and I think that a lot of the people that go there are from out of town. Sure, a lot of people from Milton go up there and buy their tree, and we don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with Santa Claus. I don't have an issue with them giving hot chocolate out, but I do have an issue where these things morph into something a lot bigger than what has been suggested to the board. And I think if you take a look at what happened last year, it's a constant battle of monitoring, and I don't feel that I should spend my time monitoring what goes on. And so, if past history is any indication of the future, which I think it is, I don't think it's going to be one day. I don't think it's going to be 6 hours. And like Phil said, I have a right to enjoy my Sunday during the holiday season in peace. It's a residentially zoned neighborhood, and this is not permitted by the zoning.
Thank you. You've answered my question. Mr. Johanning, you all set?
I guess I wanted to say pretty much what John said. We heard that it was an artisan's thing on the first Sunday of December, but it's not because of Mr. Prondek's finding. And yourself, when you made the ruling in September of 2013, you said that you and the other board members said that their landscaping and construction business had grown to such an extent that it, that's what happens. Like firewood, for instance, they're claiming now that in 2012 they sold 1,000 cords of firewood out of that facility, which is like 4 acres, and there are 2 houses on it. So 1,000 cords coming in and going out. That's what this is all about. It's about constant growth. And I'm happy for them to be successful, but not against the zoning and not in my backyard. And it's unstoppable. It goes from one day to a week to a month to 1,000 cords of wood to landscaping and construction. It constantly, I would like them to be successful. I think they run a really nice business, but I think it should be in a commercial area, and I think they should really investigate that.
Thank you, Mr. Jane. Is there anybody? Yes, sir, please. Yes, sir. Tell us your name and address.
Leo Featherston, 134 Edgehill Road. I'm here in support of Thayer Nursery. I just want to make sure I heard this right. I talked to Joe this year because there was a house built next to me, and we had a disagreement. I said it was a deck. Joe said it was a stone patio. Now, is this the forum when Joe makes a decision or a denial, that you come before this board, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
So it's not really an appeal of a bylaw or anything like that, it's an appeal of Joe's decision, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
They're asking us to reverse Mr. Prondak
Right, but
determination.
This is the correct form, and this is the way you go about it, right?
Yes, it is.
Right, okay. All right, because I thought, when I talked to Joe, Joe said to me that he would put his denial in writing, and I could come before the board.
Yes.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Okay, thanks,
All right.
Mr. Feathers. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard in opposition to Thayer's position here? Okay, there's no such person. Mr. DeLuna, do you have any closing remarks? You do not. Mr. Prondak, do you have anything you wish to add?
Only that, you know, should the board act favorably, that they consider, are there going to be any other functions? And again, I don't know.
Well, look at it, if we act, to my view, but subject to my colleagues, we're being asked to rule on a very narrow and specific issue here, whether on December 6th from 10 o'clock to 4 in the afternoon, artisans can be present at Thayer Nursery to sell the type of goods that described in the advertisement. That is it. We're not here to discuss artisans' markets and what's fair game there, or what they can sell the day before Christmas or the day after Christmas. It's just this one narrow issue.
Happy to withdraw that question.
Oh, pardon me?
Happy to withdraw that.
Yeah, no, so I think that's what we're here to decide. So if there's no other evidence to be heard, what we'll do is we'll call to a conclusion the evidence, and let's discuss this in open session and see if we can come to some fair decision. We're obliged to make our decision in open session under the public meeting law, and let's see if we have a consensus. Mr. Mullen, do you want to be heard?
So I feel like I'm not sure I agree with you on what we're being asked to do. With all respect to the chair, and I think the hearing got a little, we kind of stood the question on its head a bit. The first thing I'd like to say is it seems to me there's no objection to the conduct of a fair on the day. And
Well, they don't need a permit to do this,
correct.
to the best of my knowledge.
But it's also not being asked. We're not being asked that question.
That's true.
We're being asked whether or not Thayer Nursery can sell things that were specifically prohibited in a permit that this board issued in 2014. It seems to me that that's pretty obvious that they can't. But the facts aren't that they're alleging that they are. And I think the issue really is they can do things that are within the permit unless they're precluded by state law, unless our prohibition on doing it are precluded by state law. This is a preclusion case, I think. And I don't know that they need anything from the Board of Appeals to do that. In other words, I'm not sure Thayer Nursery is asking us for anything. If they've got the right to do it, they've got the right to do it. I mean, I don't know, I'm just talking out loud, but they've got a special permit. They've got a court order. They've got a ruling from the building commissioner as to what they can sell and what they can't sell.
Right, and I think
They've also alleged that what they're doing is not violating this special permit because the things that they're doing are conducting something that is agricultural in nature under Chapter 48, Section 3, and therefore the town doesn't have the right to regulate it.
that's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. And
But I think they're looking for protection so that we address these issues at this hearing, so that if they have this public festival that they've had for the past 12 years, that all of a sudden a complaint won't be rendered against them for violating, or a complaint for contempt won't be brought by the building inspector or town council to seek to hold them into contempt when they brought a proceeding to appeal Mr. Prondak's ruling.
right.
So they're looking for almost a declaration as
Right.
to...
They're looking for a declaration as to whether or not this action is protected under the Dover Amendment.
Well, in part, and whether Mr. Prondak's ruling is appropriate under the circumstances.
But all he said is that This is fun.
Well, it's not fun if,
It's fun.
if the police are going to come down and close you down.
Well, not fun for you.
There'd be a public, an unfortunate public display. That's what we want to avoid here.
I'm just, all that's happened here is the town officials have read the rulings of the Board of Appeals and has said, this is what Thayer Nursery can sell and cannot sell, and I don't think anyone's...
Well, that's what he's supposed to do.
I got it. So
if he didn't do it, he should resign as building commissioner. Joe does a great job upholding our rulings.
Are you saying that I'm saying that he doesn't do a great job?
No, I know you think he does a great job.
What I'm wondering out loud is, and I don't feel like we have enough evidences to speak to the issue of whether or not this activity is agritourism. That's an issue for me.
Okay.
Because I think it's a very big deal in the Massachusetts farming community. And I know the cases, the legislature has spoken to the protection of agriculture in the Commonwealth. And the legislature has spoken to the agriculture, the protection of, and the desire to nurture these agricultural institutions. And nobody's alleging that that's not the law. And that's what's in the testimony. What I'm not certain is whether this activity is indeed agritourism, and it would be really helpful, very helpful, if the commissioner of the Department of Food and Agriculture or Department of Agricultural Resources were here. He's not here. So I have a couple of other things.
Well, did they render, like the Attorney General's office,
I don't
do they
know.
render opinions?
I don't know. I'm not a former nurseryman. You know.
Mr. DeLuna, do you know? Does the Department of Agriculture render advisory opinions if asked?
The advisory opinions are those opinions that are online. And if you go to the website and you...
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. DeLuna, I'm sorry. I'm being chastised, and rightfully so. You can't be heard from there. So could you please come up into the table and speak through the microphone so the public can hear you? You're not on public TV anymore, so this is...
Oh, okay. If you go to the Department of Agricultural Resources website, hit L, they will have legal opinions. All right. They do not address specific issues. The opinion that I gave you from Bob Ritchie is in fact one of those that are online. There's a series of them.
Okay. Let me just say that on that issue. This is the first time I think the board has dealt with this issue.
Well,
Agritourism.
it may be. Mr. DeLuna is a multifaceted lawyer dealing with the Dover Amendment and the protection of farms and agriculture. He may have mentioned it in the past, but I think that this is the first time that he's been this specific about, in this context.
I
That's
believe
all.
that in Milton, this is the first time that it's come up.
And yet it has application for other properties in the town.
Agricultural properties, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to say that. I also think there are a couple of other issues that we should talk about, and one is whether or not the activity is indeed creating a nuisance or something that is detrimental to the town. And I think we should talk about whether or not there's support and it's in derogation of the bylaw. But I think most importantly, I see this as a preclusion case, and I'm wondering whether we've got sufficient facts. That's my feeling.
And do you mean sufficient facts presented by the parties, or do you mean that we have not had the opportunity to do sufficient research and background to determine whether this is or is not agricultural tourism or whatever, and we need more time to study that issue?
Well, I think the nature of the case is really, the complexion of the case changes quite a bit if it becomes a case about 48.3, in which case I'd prefer, I think that's a complex area versus a request for a one-day special permit, which is a very different thing. A one-day special permit is about the noxious use and the risk, reward, benefit versus burden analysis that I think this board is more typically used to.
Do you think that's before us?
I don't.
I don't either.
Yeah, I thought that's what you said.
No, well, if I did, I misspoke.
Okay, then I won't put words in your
No,
mouth.
but
I
all I'm saying is that from the applicant's perspective, that's what they're saying. They're representing to us that this is a one-day, 6 or 7 hour holiday festival that they've been holding for the benefit of the community and children for 12 years, and they've been doing it successfully without any claims of nuisance. There may have been some claims of abutters' driveways being blocked or something like that. And then the question is, and they can certainly have that. That's absolutely true. The question is, does the sale of beaded goods or some of the artifacts that are shown here that are kind of family type artifacts? You may buy a beaded bracelet for your daughter or something, but probably wouldn't get by that buying it for your wife. I mean, these are family. You know,
She
this
might
isn't
like it. My
high
wife
end.
might like that.
This is not high end jewelry. This is it's home type crafts. And then the question is that against the distinctions we've made in our decisions, that we shouldn't basically permit this.
Fair enough, fair enough, yeah. Okay, I understand that. Well,
So, are you looking for more time to do research or to do additional studies or to contemplate this issue? Or?
I think I think that it's not about the event, it's about what happens at the event.
It
I
is.
think that's an important principle that has been established at this hearing, and I think it's worth saying that. I don't know that that's a formal ruling of the board. I don't know that we have to make a ruling on that, but that's important. And then the question is, what is it exactly that we're being asked to do? And if it's a case of preclusion, I don't know that we have to do anything.
So your suggestion is do nothing and let everyone take their own recourse. That if Mr. Joe Henning believes that this is a violation of our previous decisions and Judge Paul Wilson's decision, then he should spend his money and go into court and try to get an injunction to prevent this from happening? Or when that issue is, people are asking us for we're the decision maker here, we're the permitting authority, at least for the present, and they're asking us whether this is proper. I think it would be wonderful if everyone could get together and compromise on this in a sense that is the Thayer Nursery Christmas holiday, if we can call it that, it's one-day event, is it able to be successfully operated without the sale of knitted goods or beaded bracelets or whatever? Or is that an indispensable part of this?
No, I understand.
You know,
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
No,
I think that's what
I
people.
mean, it's helpful to, if the board's pleasure is to come to a decision tonight, I'm happy to have that
No,
conversation.
but my pleasure is to make everyone feel comfortable that they have the resources to deal with that issue. And if you feel that you want to read some of the materials submitted by Mr. DeLuna or Mr. Dunn, you know, we certainly can take the opportunity to do that. And we could defer a decision on this for a fairly short period of time because, you know, Thayer has to make plans. And these artisans have to make plans, and if they're not going to be permitted to be there, at least on our initial decision, then they should know about it sooner than later. It's not fair to delay that. But I do understand, and I respect Mr. DeLuna's good faith. This is his area of specialty, and if we had these materials 2 days ago, he was probably on trial somewhere. But if we had these materials 2 days ago, we could have researched them and perhaps come to maybe a better grip on the issues, but we didn't. We received it this evening, and we likewise received Mr. Dunn's letter. I think it came in at 4:35. I didn't see it till I came to this meeting. So, okay, Mr. David, you want to be heard. Where do you stand on this one?
I think it is a preclusion issue or exemption issue, as Mr. DeLuna argued, and that was his principal argument. I think we're being asked to make a decision on it, and I think we should make a decision on it. And I think that before I'm ready to make a decision on an important issue like that, and a complex issue, as Mr. Mullen said, you know, I would need to review these materials and review some of the cases cited and maybe do some of my own research.
Okay.
Because it's too important not to.
Okay.
Because it has, I mean, the decision, in either way, it could be appealed, but it could have ramifications beyond a one-day, you know, beyond the one-day Christmas fair.
Okay.
So that's what I think.
Mr. Mullen, do you agree with that? Do you want to continue this deliberation for a week, something that short? Are you available? What's the timing of all of this? How does that time out with you, Mr. DeLuna? Do you know when you'd have to notify these artisans if they're not permitted to be there?
Yes, yesterday.
Last week.
Well, that's too bad, unfortunately. I mean, have you signed contracts with these people so that they...
No, we didn't know the building inspector was gonna render this decision after 12 years, so it's kinda hard to plan.
Okay, have these, have similar artisans been appearing at Thayer for the last 12 years? And
We try to freshen them up all the time.
oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Oldfield, can you come up here and
Oh, sorry.
just repeat that so we'll have it on the record here, at least for the TV folks?
Sure, like our goal is to have the best quality vendors that tie in with our model and theme as a community. So these people are in demand.
Okay.
So it's completely reflective on the availability of these folks. And if we don't communicate with them, the town suffers, we suffer, and then our wishes and your wishes probably would not be met.
Are you still able to conduct the fair without the artisans?
No,
You wouldn't?
nope,
Would you cancel the...
yes,
You would?
yep.
Why is that? If you want to spread Christmas cheer amongst the children and have their photographs taken with Santa?
That's the whole
and-
purpose. They're accustomed to these things.
Yeah, but when you take that position, it sounds as if what you're doing is you're making a commercial decision
No, I'm not.
rather than a decision that benefits the welfare of the children and families of the town of Milton.
What we would need is Maggie Oldfield,
Sure.
town meeting member, precinct 9. What we need is a list of acceptable vendors that Joe would approve of. I don't know what Joe approves of. What Joe approves of every single day is different.
Well, we have the vendors that you've asked for here, and we can make a decision on that. It's not Joe's, it's not the
Well, is it
subject of his
honey?
office.
Can
to
we
be-
have honey? Can we not have honey?
Can we have fire pits?
Can we have fire
Apparently,
pits?
he
We
says
can't
no.
have fire pits.
Well, there's nothing,
know.
I have nothing about fire pits here. Where does fire pits
No,
come
I know, I'm just saying, I'm just expressing my frustration.
No, but I
through
think,
this whole
isn't
entire
there a
process.
difference between selling honey, which Mr. DeLuna will tell us comes from bees on the farm and all of that, and somebody making beaded jewelry?
Well,
Isn't that a...
not necessarily if the jeweler goes and collects the seashells off the ocean and
Yeah,
from
but
the
that's
beach.
not a
I
farm.
don't
I know.
really think.
If I can just say something.
I don't know, I just
I
don't
just think, let's not get sidetracked as to what the spirit and the intent of this family event is. I think we need to focus on what our legal rights are as well as what the intent is. And as I see it, the net result for this event is a harmonious marriage between our community and my family doing business that loves to be here. End of story. But we're not looking to do anything else.
No, I
It's been
understand
going
that.
on for
All-
12 years. Why is it any different this year?
And one of my questions, and it's totally off topic, but I do kind of feel like you guys have been down this road recently with the Eustace Estate. I feel like the zoning board made some decisions about their outdoor activities. And they are allowed to have unlimited indoor activities and unlimited outdoor activities without sound amplification.
But they're an educational use, and they're spending They spent millions and millions of dollars to acquire that facility.
But it
And
has
that-
nothing to do
no,
with it.
No, listen to me. And they're spending $10 million to upgrade that facility so that it can be of use to school children and the like.
But it's a
So
Dover,
that's
it's a Dover
irrelevant.
amendment situation. That's what it comes down to. Money is not, shouldn't be a
They have
factor.
100 acres there as opposed to your 5 acres?
We only need 2 in the state of Massachusetts legally. You could have 1,000. It doesn't matter.
I just
So
want
I guess what you're telling us
consistency.
that what we should do is tell the charitable educational institution that's reestablishing the Eustis Estate into a premier facility for the school children of Milton and for other educators for historic development, we should tell them that they should go away
No, we're
because
not
we may
telling-
not allow you
not
to
at
sell
all. Not at all.
popcorn or
No.
knitted wares.
It
Is that
just
what you're
comes
saying?
back to state law. That's all it is.
Okay, so you're willing to allow us to adjourn, study state law, and we'll come up with a legal, now hear me, a legal opinion as to whether this
Again,
use is precluded or not.
I don't wanna go to-
Because that's not what the selectmen are saying here.
I know.
The selectmen aren't relying on
I'm
legalities.
just saying that, I just feel like I'm being forced into defending myself by saying that based on your interaction. So I said what I said here, and it's a family event, a community event, that's it. That's all we're looking for, a 6-hour event, 8-hour event that day to have.
Our frustration lies in that we don't think that we should be here asking your approval for this one-day event.
Well, I guess you don't have to be.
That's-
We could uphold Mr. Prondak's decision, and you can have your fair, and you can have your artisans there, and either Mr. Prondak or he could go file a complaint for contempt against you, and you could fight it out in the district court. Or if he thought you were creating a nuisance, he could call the police, or Mr. Joe Henning could call the police and have them take the vendors and throw them off of your property.
And we don't want that.
We-
Well, nobody
that's not
wants
a-
that. That's what we don't want that.
We don't want that.
Nobody wants that.
We
Who would
don't
want
want
it?
that.
We don't want you to cancel your Christmas fair if the board says, as a matter of law, you can't sell
Right. Let's just not get.
beaded jewelry.
I just don't want to get
But
sidetracked.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
But that's
not-
crazy.
I know. Let's just focus on this event for that day.
Mr. DeLuna.
I think one of the crucial issues that is articulated in the court cases and is the spirit of the court cases is Thayer Nursery cannot sell.
Well, I understand, and you're saying, yeah,
So
but,
these artisans are not Thayer Nursery.
well, right, but they're under the license or agreement of
Or
Thayer.
the exemption
Well,
that Thayer Nursery has.
Sure, but you're coming back to the legal issue, the legal distinction of whether there is an exemption.
The legal distinction as well as the spirit of all these cases are what Thayer Nursery can and cannot sell.
Do you think there's a difference, Mr. DeLuna, between Thayer Nursery selling honey or selling beaded bracelets? Is there a distinction somewhere?
I think there is a distinction, and that lies in the spirit of the prior decisions of this board as well as the spirit of the decision of the courts. It's Thayer Nursery can't sell these on a regular basis. It's not necessarily a 6-hour event that all the money generated to Thayer goes to charity and the artisans and craftsmen make their own money. Thayer gets nothing out of this except the fact that it draws people in so that Thayer Nursery can sell the
I
products
understand.
that they're allowed to sell.
That's your argument.
And my question is, what happens?
What if they wanted to sell automobiles up there? Does that make any difference?
I
Because
think
that-
it
because that
would
would
be,
bring in-
because as you indicated, the products that are being for sale are these artsy, craftsy, and I don't consider an automobile in that.
Or have a
in that
raffle, an
category.
automobile raffle or something like that. That doesn't,
Well, maybe an automobile raffle and the money goes to charity.
because it's going to benefit agriculture, because you say agricultural activities are taking place on Thayer's property. when I think we've got board decisions that say that the majority of the use of Thayer's property is really not true agriculture. It was landscaping and it was other activities, which
Which have
don't-
been removed from the site.
That's been removed.
Which
Presumably
we're
that's
not.
going to be.
But
it's
if they
not
wanted to,
currently.
if they wanted to auction off a Rolls Royce, and all that money went to a charity, that's not the sale of the Rolls Royce. And if they wanted to do that, I think that is in the purview of all the decisions. I'm sorry,
You
I
don't
think it's
that's
outside of the
You don't think
purview.
that's an artifice to run around the law?
No.
And the decisions of the board?
No, because there's no sale involved.
Mr. Mullins, you want to be heard? We're going to end this pretty soon here.
We're going to continue, or?
Well, I think we are, because
Okay.
Ted wants to read the decisions. and-
How do you guys feel?
Well, let me just see. The letter from the building inspector says that products including but not limited to arts, clothing, ceramics, jewelry, housewares, candles, soaps, and carvings are not allowed to be sold at 270 Hillside Street, Thayer Nursery. The decision of the Board of Appeals says that the building commissioner shall conduct a review, sale of goods at Thayer, and shall issue an order to cease and desist from the sale of items and goods not reasonably incidental or accessory to customary nursery-related operations and not previously authorized by a special permit. That's where we are right now. I mean, one way to address this issue without making, I'm concerned about making a call on the Dover Amendment on this issue that has broad-scale application in the town without knowing all the facts. I think Ted is concerned as well. The real issue is whether or not, well, let me ask you this. Are all these products handmade?
Yeah.
They are.
They're all made by, it says here, unique and unforgettable, the carefully curated selection of gourmet foods, fresh produce, flowers, arts. See, I'm concerned about the board having to make an individual decision on honey and flowers, and I just don't think that's our business. I do think that we can make a determination as to whether or not Thayer Nursery can host an event that involves the sale of items and goods reasonably incidental or accessory to customary nursery-related operations. I think that's a fair question.
Okay.
And if the argument is that even though they're not being grown on the premises or that they're not related to nursery stock, but are consistent with this Chapter 40A, Section 3 interpretation, perhaps that's for somebody else to determine. But we have established the principle that that what the board has said previously with respect to this premises is what they can do. Now, I'm just concerned about making a specific call, because then I think we'll be back here every week making another call on whether or not, I mean, you were there, we had Eagle Farms, we were making a call on whether he could sell lobsters.
And he could, that was,
He did, and then he stopped doing it. We didn't make a decision. So that's one way to address it, seems to me.
Right, but that's a way of avoiding the issue, isn't it? Because it doesn't benefit Thayer Nursery,
Well-
and it doesn't benefit Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe, and Ms. Lepore. I forgot to mention, Ms. Lepore wrote a letter asserting the same position as Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe. So all you're doing is saying, well, this is what we've decided, but it leaves everyone in a state of limbo. So Mr. Johanning, to protect his tranquility, has to run in and hope Judge Wilson is sitting in that first session, I don't know who's out there now, and spend money to get an injunction. And yet we're leaving Thayer Nursery at the expense of somebody claiming they violated the decision.
one of my solutions, which I thought that, like, the town gives away one-day liquor license. So until all the bigger questions are answered, I thought perhaps that I could go and apply for either a yard sale permit or a block party permit. So at least for this year, we are on a tight time frame. All of our vendors and the artisans, they commit now, and they rely on the holiday season for a good chunk of their income. So for this, I thought perhaps a yard sale permit, or a block party permit.
But I think you're
I-
changing the label. So
I
who's going
know.
to give you the permit anyway? The
I
selectmen,
don't,
or-
it would be through the selectmen, but I just thought perhaps it could be a solution until it was resolved on a bigger issue. So you're right in that we are looking for relief, I guess is the correct word, for this one-day event. But we also don't want to limit ourselves to just this one-day
All right.
event.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I think that is the issue.
And-
Ms. Ofo, just one second. This gentleman, you've been trying to say something now
I
for
want to
10
ask
minutes.
a crazy question.
Sure.
Farms are.
They can't hear you.
You have to come up to
You
the...
have to come up here.
I just want to see if I'm on the right track. Can I have that piece of paper, please, Maggie? Scott Johnson, 11 Hillside Street. Farms are encouraged and allowed to participate in agritourism in this state, is that correct?
Well, that's
We
Mr.
don't know.
Del-
That's what we're learning right
That's
now.
what, yeah,
Okay.
Mr. DeLuna is teaching us about that.
Right, and I just request that during your deliberations that you look at this. This has been provided to you, but this is the definition of agritourism, and I think this could maybe help everybody solve the whole problem very quickly. Agritourism is, and this is off the mass.gov website, the definition of agritourism is anything you do to draw visitors to your farm for the purpose of selling them products or experiences. It's very broad. It can be as simple as a roadside stand to sell your produce or as elaborate as a corn maze. So, I mean, these are, if it's used to draw people in, and by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong in America with making money, too, by the way. There seems to have been this, like, stigma about, oh, you're making, people making money. I heard that several times. But I think that it's a definition that's on the mass.gov website. It's almost, the commissioner's not here, but it's on his site.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll find it useful as a way to maybe be able to give a broad scope to other farms too in the future. That's
Let me just say two things
Yes,
about
sir.
it. The
Please.
concern is that if the board makes that ruling, it has wide-scale implication of this town. And
I understand.
we really want to know what we're saying when we say it.
right.
And this is an important issue for the town.
Yep.
Nobody has said that it's not a good thing to make money. In fact, the courts have said it's a good thing to encourage farms to make money because we want farms in the Commonwealth. So the case law is to the contrary. And so the board is taking notice of that, and we have in this meeting.
Okay,
so.
great, yeah. But my point is that anything to draw visitors to your farm, and these products are clearly the draw because people want to come there and they want to buy gifts. And it's a season of giving, and it's a draw. So I see the artisans, and they don't make any noise. They're in an enclosed area inside, most of them. So-
It's actually more than drawing to the farm. It's drawing and experiencing the farm. It's
Right.
inviting people into the farm, which is why I asked the question of whether they're touring the nursery.
Yeah, they
So,
do.
in the letter to the town, it said, "Come meet a farmer, chat with a farmer." That's really important to this agritourism. That's what it's all about. I don't want anyone to have the impression that if you can just invite business people up there and do anything you want. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about inviting people from the outside into farms to, and what we're trying to figure out is whether that's really what's going on and whether that's an established doctrine and whether that's something. I think the town is being asked to embrace the doctrine. And that's versus a one-day permit for a holiday festival that has wide-scale support and some opposition. So,
Well, I can tell you from my experience, and to your point, which is a good one, that I have brought my kids up there since they were this tall, and they're up there petting the animals, feeding them, and I talked to Josh. He's the farmer, and the workers there too. I talk to those guys all the time when I'm there. It's part of the whole experience. So we meet farmers, I guess, when we're there.
yeah, no, we got that. That's just on the record. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, I just see everybody wrestling with this. I just thought I'd point that out. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe.
I have an order here by Judge Davis of Norfolk Superior Court that indicates that their nursery is not covered under the Dover Amendment, and I'd like to submit this as evidence. This may be very helpful in your decision.
Thank
If I
you.
may
very-
address that, that
Of
was
course you can.
a matter addressing the landscaping and
Right, that's-
construction, not the nursery.
No, I understand that. I do understand that, and
If I could just speak in
Mr.
in
Johanna.
response to that.
Sure.
That, what Mr. DeLuna said is accurate, but Judge Davis did not relook at the situation and make another determination. What he wrote was that the Dover Amendment does not apply. And if we wanted to get into a hearing about it, we have ample evidence to say that for many reasons, the Dover Amendment doesn't apply. And you yourself have said during hearings, we're not getting into Dover Amendment because it doesn't apply. Now, maybe it was for the same reasons as because of landscaping and construction, but until Judge Davis makes another decision or until Judge Wilson makes another decision, his decision there is it doesn't apply.
okay, thank you very much. My suggestion is, it's now almost 20 minutes of 11, that we pick a date within the next week to resume and decide this case, after we've had a chance to review the materials submitted by both counsel, do our own independent research, and come to a conclusion here. Do you agree with that? Ed? Okay.
Which we should ask whether that works for the applicant and for the petitioner.
Well, sure, they're going to say it isn't. They want a decision tonight. I understand that, but we're not, I don't think we're able to do that. Mr. DeLuna, yeah, Mrs., is it Stockard? Yes.
Carol Stocker, 291 Hillside Street. I am not a lawyer, so I am not conversant with the legal technicalities that you're dealing with. But as somebody who's written about farms and farmers markets and nurseries for 35 years all over Massachusetts and the country, I basically do not understand why their nursery or the farmer's market here is proscribed against selling what farmers markets all over Massachusetts and nurseries all over Massachusetts sell, which is a wide variety of items, so they can stay in business. And I'm wondering if there's something, if Milton, and perhaps Milton alone in the entire state from what I've seen, has a law forbidding selling beaded necklaces in a nursery, or a law forbidding farmers markets from selling honey, maybe there's something wrong with Milton's laws, and I'm wondering, where did these come from, and can they be changed to put them more in line with the rest of the state, and also the state government, which is pro-farming and pro-farmers markets?
Well, I think what the issue has become is we've had several decisions of Superior Court judges as a result of controversy with Thayer Nursery as to what is appropriately related to a nursery use. And so Judge Wilson here most recently determined that selling paving stones and granite and retaining walls, selling patio furniture, selling bocce balls, and presumably, I don't know whatever they have with bocce, outdoor games, propane and fire heating appliances, portable cooking grills are not considered, he says, cannot be considered accessory or incidental to the nursery business in the sale and display of more traditional nursery products like Christmas trees, wreaths, mulches, hoses, lawn sprinklers, and the like. And the court has been trying to make these distinctions, and so that's how we've been going down this road. And it's
Pardon my ignorance, but if other nurseries sell these things, and he's saying Thayer can't sell them, is he making law for all the nurseries in the state?
no, he's making a decision based upon the specific restrictions of the Milton zoning bylaw. It may be that Concord has a different bylaw, and maybe more generous in its interpretation. But then we have Mr. DeLuna saying under this agricultural exemption that this is protected. He can do this as a matter of right. So that's the decision we have to make. And I think the problem is you have items like the sale of honey, which probably is classically something that's agricultural, and you have sale of furniture. I don't know whether any of these artisans make furniture, but that wouldn't ordinarily and usually be considered a use that's consistent with a nursery use. It's like
Garden furniture would be.
Well, it may and it may not be. Bernie and Phil's could be up there and selling all of their wares, but nobody would say that's typically.
Well, when I go to nurseries, when I go to nurseries, what they sell is outdoor furniture, but they do not sell indoor furniture.
Right, right. And
So you see, I mean, I'm just applying the standard of what do I see in other nurseries in other towns.
Right.
In our own town, a mile away. And I believe Judge Wilson's statement is only a restatement of what was the decision from here. I don't believe Judge Wilson came up with that language on his own. That language was specifically stated in a decision made by this zoning board.
Right, but he adopted that decision,
And
and
if you go right
that's
up
his
the
ruling
street-
under the Milton bylaw.
According-
Where's up the street?
Up on Route 28, in our decision, this board ruled that mulch and compost was not an accessory use to a nursery, but then right up the street at Eagle Farm and Thomas, and then down the street at Coulter.
You keep saying this, but Mr. Thomas he's not in a residential zone.
He is in a residential zone.
I
Eagle
don't-
Farm is a residential.
Yeah,
and
they're
Eagle
both in-
Farm is, but I
yeah.
don't think Mr. Thomas is.
He is.
Yeah, they both are in
He is.
residential
They're all
zones.
Milton is zoned about 98% residential. The only commercial districts in town is East Milton, Milton Village, and Central Ave. Every other area is a
You may be right.
residential.
I wouldn't have believed that Thomas was in the residential zone, but he may be.
Thomases
The long and the short of it is here, you're entitled to a decision on your application to overturn Mr. Prondak's decision. We've had 2 sets of legal documents delivered to us at 4 o'clock, 4:50 this afternoon. We haven't had a chance to read them. You're really entitled to have us read them. We haven't been able to do our legal research since the issue of agricultural tourism, if I can refer to that, that was going to be the principal argument here. I don't know that it was made in your appeal of Mr. Prondak's decision, and we've got a right to consider it. You should want us to consider it, and we'll decide it one way or the other, and the losing party can run off to court if you want and try to protect your legal rights.
Can I just say something?
Yes, you
As
can.
somebody who's not, Carol Stalker, as somebody who is not a lawyer, but is very involved in the community, this whole situation seems patently absurd. And as somebody who has written for 35 years and won national awards covering the nursery business and horticulture, this is out of sync with what's going on everywhere else. So I have to question whether the process that created these rulings is perhaps coming out of a place of lack of knowledge of this business and the way it is conducted today.
Well,
Kind of
look,
like
you know,
somebody
that may
ruling
be.
on farming in the Midwest who doesn't know anything about it. You know, and the poor wheat farmer's saying, well, wait a minute, you know, I can't follow those rules and stay in business.
No, look, I understand what you're saying. I think the problem is twofold here, in my view. Number one, the decision of Judge Wilson that we've been quoting from and referring to is a decision that's dated June 10th, 2014. So it's not a recent decision of the court. And here we are, we're in the very end of October with a Christmas fair scheduled for December 6th. So it would have been helpful, I guess, if we had a filing earlier, or this issue was raised earlier, we wouldn't be under the time pressures we are. I think the sad part of all of this, in my view, is that we have perhaps 7 or 8 legal proceedings that have been brought by and between the parties here for a period of maybe 5 years, maybe longer than that, all without a final adjudication of the court. These matters have not been able to be put on for hearing on a consolidated basis and have the judge out in Norfolk County make a decision on the merits after whatever evidence, and then let everyone go and pursue their appellate remedies if they want to. So you have all of these rulings and decisions on stone, crushed stone, and construction activities, and mulch, and they're all over the place, but nobody, I think everyone has used their best efforts to try to get these cases assigned for hearing and finally adjudicated, and nobody's had any success. And so all of these issues stay outstanding, and new issues keep coming up every day now.
Why do you think that is?
I don't have the slightest idea. It's,
Could I make one comment, though? The ruling by Judge Wilson is final. It was not appealed. It is final. And what he did was he agreed with what you said, you and the other board members, in September of 2013. That is final. And it's really consistent with what Mr. Prondak said in his letter. So that is not up in the air. And the other thing I'd like to ask is, what are we deciding? We're just deciding whether you are going to support Mr. Prondak's decision or deny it. There's nothing about a one-day permit, right? I mean, we're not,
well, everyone,
nobody has applied for that, right?
Well, I don't know, but we wouldn't grant that type of permit. It's
Okay.
it's not within our jurisdiction, but.
We're only here to agree with Mr. Prondak or overrule him.
Yes, or agree with Mr. DeLuna that somehow this is particular goods or something that within the protection of the Dover Amendment and the exception that I keep misstating it, but is it, what is it called, Jeffrey, help me?
Agritourism.
Yeah, agritourism.
Just one question, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind. Sorry.
Please.
If we don't talk about agritourism, just take that out of the equation.
Well, you can't do that because Mr.
I'm just
DeLuna will get
yeah.
very mad at
No,
us
I'm
because he
just-
thinks that's his legal
Yeah,
trump card.
just for the sake of having this one-day event. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's too much involved to settle that. Too much time will go by. It will affect our event. We probably won't be able to have the event. Those are the facts of the matter. So is there a way to still have the event that's in the best interest of the town, that is endorsed by the not by individual members of the selectmen, and the community as a whole, as a neighborhood as a whole, and just have the event, and then we'll deal with the big picture after the fact?
Well, that would, that sounds like an easy solution, but what it does, it would, unless there's an agreement between Thayer Nursery and Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe.
And Mrs. Lepore.
And Mrs. Lepore as to, what type of artisans could be there. And if you did that, that would be fine. The issue would go away. So.
Could we ask that question now?
Well, of course you can, but I don't know that it's fair to.
You'll have to talk to my lawyer.
I don't know that it's fair to do that, but as I say, there are certain distinctions that you can make. Maybe the knitting of woolen products and the sale of honey may be closer to a traditional nursery.
I mean,
type
ultimately, the board's gonna make the decision.
Yeah.
So, in your mind, can you give me a sense of what you feel comfortable granting?
And that being said, whatever.
That's not really a fair question.
Yeah. What about the other?
We didn't came to the hearing to make the decision. We weren't presented with an argument that the activities that we're undergoing are incidental and accessory to the customary nursery-related operations, which I thought was going to be the argument. And therefore, they fit within the permit. That's not what we heard. What we heard was, we don't have jurisdiction because it's within the limits of the Dover Amendment, which is like a huge issue for me and a huge issue for this board. In order to deal with that issue, which is the issue that's been presented to us, we just want some time to think about it.
Understood.
I get that it might impact you. I don't want to impact you. I want to make this decision, but we also have a duty to the town to do the right thing. And we can only deal with the facts that have been presented. I suppose we could consider it in the alternative, and that would really be the way to think about it. But that was not the case. That was not the testimony, so. I don't know, it's a tough, the way you positioned the question is.
I'm just trying to come up with a
I get it,
solution.
but that was not the argument that was
Yeah.
brought to the board, so.
Yeah, but look, my hope is that we can continue this, let's say, for 1 week, depending on everyone's schedule. We'll be prepared to make a legal decision at that time, right, wrong, or indifferent. In the interim, if there's some way that some accommodation can be made between the parties, between let's say, between Mr. DeLuna and Mr. Dunn, because they're the lawyers for the people, that would make some sense out of this, the board would jump with joy.
Tuesday, Thursday?
Could I ask one question? I guess we didn't know that we were discussing the Dover Amendment,
Well, we didn't either.
which is something we do not agree with, and we
understand.
believe we have ample evidence to show that it doesn't apply in this case. Are we talking about that now?
We're
Like,
talking
in
about
the
this-
next meeting, would it be appropriate for us to bring evidence that shows that it doesn't apply? Or is the hearing closed?
Well, I don't think factually we need any more evidence. If Mr.
Well, it
Dunn-
either applies or it doesn't, and we don't believe it does.
Well, I
and
understand.
Mr. DeLuna believes it does.
Right, but,
So that's a matter of evidence, right?
No, it's a matter of, what's that?
You could give another written submission, right?
Well, he could. It's not a matter of evidence. All I'm suggesting is, number one, and I don't know whether this is true, certainly you should have, you or Mr. Dunn, and I'm not critical whatsoever for Mr. Dunn not being here tonight. He doesn't have to be here. He should have a copy of Mr. DeLuna's submission here, and particularly dealing with the issue of agritourism.
And we can get that from Mary, I'm sure.
I want 3 copies, so I don't have one for the record.
Yeah, but what we'll do is, I'll give Mary my copy, and she'll make a copy for you tomorrow, okay? And you get that to Mr. Dunn, unless Mr. DeLuna is, Mr. DeLuna, are you still here? Okay.
The MDAR amendment?
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes. Mr. DeLuna, are you able to get Mr. Dunn a copy of these materials sometime tomorrow via either email or express mail or something?
I'm not in my office the first thing in the morning, but
No, that's all right.
Perhaps we can get it from Mary, maybe easier.
Okay.
That way we know
That's
what we
fine.
submitted to the board.
Right. Right, so you're going to get the copy of the materials submitted, plus this MDAR definition and all of that. You get that to Mr. Dunn, and if he's able to submit some materials to us before the next hearing date, we're delighted to take it. If you find that Mr. Dunn is busy next week and needs a few extra days, let us know. You know,
These are not laws, these are just articles and opinions. These are not laws in MGL, right?
Well, it looks like a regulation of an
Okay, that's all.
interpretation of what may be protected under statutes.
Okay.
So what day are we looking at?
Can I just have one more thing to say?
Sure.
I'm just wondering, because we are in the Christmas season, and I know there are a lot of other fairs around town. I know Wakefield Estate is having one, Fuller Village, Council on Aging, the golf course, St. Agnes Church. So are all of these entities going to have to come before you as well and get permission?
I don't know whether they're in a residential area. I don't know whether anyone has challenged what they're doing. We're dealing with your case, and we're not dealing with anybody else's case.
Joe, what would be your interpretation of that?
I'm not aware of any other fairs in town. I'm not aware of them, just as I've not been aware of yours for the past 12 years.
All right. Well, we can submit some data to you. We'll submit some data to you about these other
So
events.
I'll look into them all.
Thank you.
Mr. DeLuna, do you anticipate filing any additional information? Are you content with your papers here?
let me talk to the commissioner. The commissioner may wish to
Okay.
file something.
Well, let's do this. Let's look at dates. How about a week, today's what, Wednesday? No, but how about a week, how about Thursday of next week?
Is that planning board, Meg?
Planning board's the 9th.
Yeah, we're talking about the 5th.
My schedule is Board of Appeals tentative, that's one of the dates you asked me to keep open. So I'm free. Jeffrey, how about you? Okay, we're all free on the 5th, Thursday the 5th, 7:30, same time and place. And if you get any materials, let's see if we can get the materials by,
2 o'clock.
really?
Ben at
How about Wednesday? Get materials by Wednesday the 4th, if we can.
Close of business Wednesday?
Sure, whatever. Yeah, well, our business never closes, but,
Bedtime reading.
Get that right.
okay. You all set? Okay, so we're adjourned until the Thursday the 5th at 7:30, same location, materials by Wednesday. Thanks for your attendance, thanks for spending so much.